Hello, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning.
I
How
don't
you
know what the
doing?
C in CNBC stands for, so I don't know if this is CLP or if that probably doesn't mean.
This CNBC stands for Consumer News and Business Channel.
Oh,
Even
so
this,
not
I mean, I think it's a
national
little bit of a
broadcast.
backronym because obviously the NBC is who owns it, and I always just presumed it was cable NBC, but it is not.
It's not Microsoft either. Okay.
No, it's not. Yeah, I don't think that's what's to be. I'll be right back.
Okay. Well, this is a great solo stream with me in a blank screen, but we are going to be talking about the Disney proxy and, more importantly, the proxy war that's now underway. Nelson Peltz, who is a major investor in Disney with his company Trian or Trian. How do you say it, Ben?
I say Trian, but that doesn't mean I'm right.
Fair enough.
One of those things you read all the time but don't hear often. Yeah, I mean, I'm not hanging out with Nelson Peltz, much to my chagrin.
Yeah, so he was on speaking of CNBC. Nelson was on CNBC this morning talking to their anchors about his issues with Disney and why he's decided to. Well, I guess it's not quite fair to say that he decided to have a proxy war. He went to the board first, wanted to have them appoint him, and when they said no, thank you, that's when you launched the thing. So.
But I would say, he didn't need to do that. It was ultimately his choice.
Well, right, eventually. But I'm saying, like, he would argue that he didn't want to. He wanted board representation. He'll go to do what
he wanted board representation. Was willing to do a proxy fight to get it.
Yes, and we'll get into all of this. But one of the things is, he shared in his letter to the board, kind of a walkthrough of how many times he's done this with companies, gone to try to seek representation on their board, and in majority of the cases, they've said, "Okay, yeah, sure, come on the board." 3 instances that did not happen. In 2 of those cases, he won a proxy and won it that way from the shareholders, and one of them he didn't. But they notes, but in that case, the CEO got fired, and then they ended up bringing me on later, and I signed an NDA. So. It definitely makes a statement when he puts it that way.
I mean, and I mean now, and basically, he's saying that their results his companies when he's on the board outpaced the S&P by about 9%. However, not all of his cases have been successful. Procter & Gamble successful, GE not so successful. But that's the case they're making. In any case, it's did you get a chance to watch the CNBC interview as I go let my dog in?
No, I don't have CNBC out in my living room. I tried to use their live stream. Maybe I have to pay for it. Maybe that's just like Nelson. Not paying for all the streaming things that I should. I should probably explain that joke. I guess during his interview, the first part of the interview, he got cut off because his free Zoom plan, you only get like 40 minutes or whatever. I guess his time was up. He must have been sitting in the green room for a while.
Yeah, it was quite surreal. Like, I mean, obviously we watch TV and like people's internet cuts out, or they lose the satellite signal or whatever. I'm not used to it just saying your free plan has expired straight on my TV. But I think I want to go through the timeline in just a moment. But there's the interview is interesting because there's sort of 2 different trains of thought that the CNBC anchors had. Is one is, why are you doing this? You basically got what you wanted, and the other is well, what's the harm, right? He just, according to him, he just wants one board seat. He's not trying to do a complete takeover. He just wants to have access that the board would have.
And I didn't see the interview, but I did see a couple of quotes floating around. So starting with yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, in the site that he launched, which is restorethemagic.com. They know fun. And one of the things that he says is, that I think a lot of Disney fans would agree with, is that they see the nickel and diming of parks fans as being like short term, and it's not good for the long term brand. I think Disney fans would agree with that. But I feel like on that one, then Iger's probably like, well, I'm not the guy. Like that was the.
Well, I think there's a lot that Iger's like not the guy, and I think it's interesting in the interview he didn't mention that, right? Like that was almost I think included to kind of win public sentiment over.
I agree based on what I saw in where he says I want to build more parks, but where's the money going to come from?
Right.
The other thing that caught my eye was that he said it seems like one of his issues is with the Fox acquisition and how much that hurt Disney's balance sheet. Fair enough. But he says that took away the dividend, which is, it's true in some way, but it was the pandemic is when they stopped the dividend. I don't think they halted the dividend for the Fox acquisition, correct?
Yeah, true. But I mean, he would say, okay, well, COVID's back. COVID's gone. The parks are making record profit. If you weren't paying off the debt on streaming and Fox, then you would be able to pay the dividend because, that's done. I would say, it's not as simple as that because obviously you added debt during the pandemic that now you have to pay back, you have to pay back too. You're still you are invested in streaming, but you don't have the, even those investments have increased because COVID, just production costs more because of COVID.
And inflation and interest and all of the things.
Yeah. And obviously the interest rate going up makes the debt more critical. So there's, I mean, I think we're getting to a point where it's hard to say, there's COVID is the cause of it, but COVID, that just is now a chain reaction that has caused all sorts of things that just has now created history. So yeah, I mean, they stopped the dividend because of COVID under Bob Chapek. And you would
technically, yes, under Bob Chapek, like a week after he took the job.
Well, but I mean, it was, but you wouldn't have expected a dividend for another 4 months. But I think it's pretty clear that that's what started this whole process that just kind of screwed up the balance sheet. Who knows what Disney would have looked like without COVID? I mean, at this point, it's sort of water in the bridge. I mean, he keeps talking about the Fox acquisition as being a bad deal. It probably was in hindsight, but who knows what would have happened if there wasn't COVID, right? I mean, none of this, COVID's one of those inflection points that just completely changed all businesses. And who knows what the path would have happened if it wasn't for that. So it's sort of, and one thing I was just struck upon is his sort of crying over spilt milk. He didn't really give like a vision for what to do better. He was talking a lot about what he's upset about, what they did wrong. Now, obviously, if you keep making mistakes, the concern is you're making mistakes moving forward. But like he kept bringing up they're wanting to purchase Sky, which would have made this whole thing even worse. Well, they didn't purchase Sky; they tapped out, and so you're like, well, they voted for it at first. Well, sure, but then they didn't. It's not like they were blindly following it for some ego reason. So it's an interesting conversation. I do want to. I
did think it was interesting. I know we're going to go through some of the proxy. That was going to be my next question for you: is how should we even go through this? Because I don't know much about these, but I did notice that. Just for context, it sounds like Tiana owns approximately 0.5% of Disney stock, which is a lot, right. But it's still, we're not talking whole integers even.
Well, and Tiana, who sort of does proxy fights, not frequently, but more frequently than many, lobbied for the SEC to have basic open proxy access, so it's a lot easier to do a proxy fight now than it was when he did Procter & Gamble. As a shareholder, you would just get proxy after proxy. Now you're on the ballot, you're on the one that's issued. You don't have to have a separate proxy. But I don't know, can we go through the timeline? I think that's interesting.
Yeah, let's go through the timeline and then we'll go, because I know Disney, there is proxy things from Disney out there right now. I don't know exactly what they all are or if it's anything.
Well, we'll take a look at that. But they, Nelson Peltz and met with Bob Chapek at Hotel New York at Disneyland Paris on July 11th, and kind of I think was
I might have been there.
discussing the interest he has in Disney, and they then.
Do you want to pull up your article? Do you want to share your screen? Or are you able to do that?
Sure.
Yeah, so but the headline here is that this, we talked about how we knew that he had met with the board this week and was offered a advisory position and declined. But it sounds like he's been at least talking to people with interest at various levels for some time now. It's not just like a week thing, obviously.
Right. Well, and I mean, I think, well, we'll get into it, but it's interesting. This spans 2 CEOs, and I think that makes it even more fascinating. But
yeah, that's also that kind of leans into what I was thinking. Is like I wonder if some of the stuff is. I wonder if he would have still done it if Chapek was still in charge, and then he's like, "Well, the ball's already rolling. I might as well keep going with this."
When he seems really well, I'll get into it because so it meets with Bob Chapek on July 11th at Hotel New York. Kind of wants to talk about joining the board. This is also a time when Disney's dealing with other shareholders who want to join the board. He talks to Safra Katz from Oracle and Amy Chang, also on the board, about his interest in joining the board. On August 10th, some of this comes from the proxy, some of this comes from me just adding it in for context. Disney delivered their third quarter, things going okay. September 30th, Disney reaches an agreement with Dan Loeb's Third Point Capital, who's also trying to get advocate their vision for Disney, agrees to add Carolyn Everson on the board effective November 21st and have a standstill agreement. They're not going to do basically what Nelson's doing here. Then things start moving pretty quickly. So on November 8th, they deliver that sort of infamous shareholder quarters report where the losses exceeds expectations. Everyone's surprised. Stock goes in the toilet, and the word on the street was Disney was disappointed, or the street was disappointed in the way Bob Chapek was sort of reacting to it, as in everything's okay without, you imagine that is it like a meme with like the fire burning, the room's on fire, and everyone's like, yeah, it's okay.
If we owned Lego, he would have said everything is awesome.
Yeah, right. So the next day, right, Nelson Peltz calls Bob Chapek to initial formal dialogue between the company and his investment group. And not that much later, he meets with Bob Chapek to discuss various topics, including, their perspective on the 21st Century Fox acquisition. Here we go again. And that that Trian believes that they should increase accountability and cut costs, which they then do, right? They then announce a hiring freeze. On November 15th, Bob Chapek informs Mr. Peltz that he cannot speak any further with them and should instead speak to Christine McCarthy, right? The woman who's like had enough with Bob Chapek at this point. Then they try and schedule a meeting. Christine offers an in-person meeting after Thanksgiving. He wants it to be sooner. They all
go on their merry way.
No, well, what's interesting in this is he says this was on November. It says November 17th that they set up a meeting with Bob Iger, the company's recently appointed chief executive officer. But Bob Iger wasn't named CEO until November 20th.
Aha.
So,
unless he had insight. So you think?
Well, I mean, I want to make sure I have my dates right.
Well, yeah, because you said right there, Disney announces that Iger would replace Bob Chapek. So unless he was,
yeah. So according to the proxy here, and I'm going to read it straight from the proxy just to be certain. Ms. McCarthy and Nelson Peltz spoke by telephone seeking to schedule a meeting. Ms. McCarthy only offered an in-person meeting in Los Angeles for after Thanksgiving with Mr. Peltz. Ms. McCarthy and Horatio Gutierrez, the senior VP of General Counsel of Disney, said in light of the company's upcoming deadline of December 9th, 2022 to submit an advance notice of nomination for directors at the 2023 annual meeting, Mr. Peltz offered a number of alternatives for an in-person meeting with Ms. McCarthy at an earlier date. Ms. McCarthy rejected these alternatives. Eventually, a virtual meeting was arranged. So apparently,
that's when he downloaded Zoom for the first time.
right. Well, I guess
Actually,
maybe this is, they say they're just saying later on as opposed to on specifically this date. I don't know why they didn't just call that out as a separate thing. But anyway, Bob. So this is all going down in that week where where were we? We were running around like at Disney thinking everything's hunky dory, and then we go. We all are as we're waiting for Elton John. Disney announces Bob Iger's replacing Bob Chapek. So, 3 days
that
later,
date you mentioned, the December 9th one, that seems like that's going to come up again.
Yeah. So the Friday, I just want to make sure I get this right. The Wednesday after that weekend, right? So Bob Iger hasn't even done his town hall yet. They have a meeting with Bob Iger and all these folks to discuss the issues, explain their perspective on things, and basically saying they are willing to engage in a proxy fight if it comes to it. Then also on that day, Disney's Horatio Gutierrez, the Disney's head lawyer, says the company was having a board meeting on November 30th. This is the board meeting where, basically the first one after Bob Iger takes on board, and they'll say that they're going to discuss adding him to the board. And so since they're going to do that, you might as well wait. After the board meeting, Horatio tells Nelson he's not going to be invited. And then on December 1st, they essentially started the process of nomination.
Gotcha. And he's nominated by, I noticed in the proxy, Matthew Peltz.
Yeah, right.
I assume that's a son, brother?
Yeah, it's a son.
Okay.
Then, as this is going on, Bob Iger informs Nelson that he cannot speak to him without having a lawyer present, basically. And Nelson says, okay, well, then we're going to have a proxy fight. They go back and forth, and they bring up that there will be a virtual board meeting in early January, but was unlikely to occur before January 6th due to Mr. Iger's plan to sail his yacht off the coast of New Zealand. Happy New Year. You think this is why Disney 100 was delayed?
I mean, I guess so. He probably already had these plans. Like, obviously, he only had 2 months. Like, I'm not on my Australian yachting plans.
Just to be clear, I do not blame Iger for taking a vacation over New Year's.
Well, it was important enough to make our headline for this article or for this stream.
I just wanted something interesting in there besides just more proxy fight, because we're going to have a lot of these streams and we have something to say.
Well, next time we're just going to make the thumbnail the Nelson months. Well,
On December 22nd, Nelson Peltz contacted Safra Katz once again, and she said you're not permitted to speak with he's not permitted to speak with them. So then Disney lets him know he can speak at the December 10th board meeting. They gave him 30 minutes. Disney ended up giving him another 15, so they had 45 minutes.
Although we know he has a free plan, so it's probably 5 minutes short of that.
And basically says, why it gives us pitch. Apparently, no one except Bob Iger had a question, which Nelson's very insulted by. And
yeah, you only got the attention of the most important person.
Right. And so then the next day, Susan Arnold, who was still the chairman of the board, but was also at this time, offered to have a seat of instead of a seat, have a information sharing observer agreement, an advisory agreement, which would be conditioned on a standstill agreement, which would basically mean Disney would not be able to increase their position or do this proxy fight. In response, Nelson once again requested representation on the board and asked that Susan consult with the board. She called back a short time later and informed that the board had not changed their decision. Later that day, which, oh, by the way, this was yesterday, Disney issues a press release saying Mark Parker is coming and sort of their take on why they shouldn't do it. On the 11th, later that day, Restore the Magic shows up. Obviously, this was prepared. This wasn't just done, in 2 minutes. And then this morning, they filed their proxy.
Bob Newell has an important question.
I'm looking at the Russian.
That
is an important question.
We need answers.
We do need answers.
So that's where the Restore the Magic site, like we said. So let me get inside baseball here. When you and I talked yesterday, you mentioned how Nelson's kind of famously for cost cutting and for things like that, and these not proxy battle, but for trying to get on boards, and that's part of this thing. But then I read, as you guys were going through this, I didn't have a chance to catch your stream with Doobie, but one of the things that we mentioned in this presentation on the site is that the nickel and diming of guests at the parks and how that's long-term bad. But so basically you're saying nothing's really changed. Your impression of him is pretty much the same as when we talked yesterday. It's just that you think that there's some wise, I don't know if pandering is the right word, posturing, something else that starts with a P, thinking that that'll play better with shareholders if he says the right things.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta remember Disney has a lot of union investment through like CalPERS and stuff. And, there's a lot of retail investors, folks like us that, they're not going to get there just through that, but it could make a difference. And so, it's a way, I think, to kind of soften the cost cutting vibe. And, he didn't bring this really up in the interview he did with CNBC. He did bring up that he'd love to build more parks, but they don't have the money. So, the balance sheet, even Jim Cramer calls it the balance sheet from hell. I've talked about the balance sheet being awful. There's no question the balance sheet is awful. They need to make money to pay down their debt, to have cash, then they can do other things. But it's just not there yet. And I don't know. I don't know what the future holds, because he's been very successful in these things. And, since he's only asking for one seat, now that's what he's asking for. Who knows what kind of influence he has, if he doesn't get his way when he gets on the board or what have you. It's, there might be a lot of investors out there who go, stock's in the toilet. I mean, there's no, he talks about, I'm going to pull up his presentation. This is the slide. I'm going to show you the slide that he is most I guess what he said, there's like 3 slides that everyone should know. He was only able to share 2 before CNBC sort of cut him off. But one's the stock price, right? Stock price is at basically January 15th levels.
Mm-hmm.
And, obviously the dividend comes into this, but at the same time, there hasn't been dividend for a couple of years. Then you have, this where basically they're talking about going to, what was it, page 8.
Can I ask you a question while you look that up real quick?
What's that?
Can I ask you a question while you look that up?
Yeah.
So the S&P right now is basically flat. Disney stock is up 3%. What does that mean?
I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, honestly,
is this an endorsement or a rejection, do you think? Because obviously this has to be on the minds of people if Disney is out trending the market, the larger market that much.
Yeah, I mean, is they thinking that he'll join and create more value? Is he thinking that it'll push him to create more value? Is it do they think that CPI numbers are helpful? It's just really hard to tell. I've been watching CNBC all morning, obviously since I've been here for a bit, but what the vibe is, it doesn't seem to shake out. The one thing that came across in his CNBC interview was it came across as personal. He was insulted by their sort of lack of willing to listen to him or give him more time or put him on the board based on
and
his
the fact
experience
that
alone.
they kind of beat him to the news cycle by disclosing that this battle in their letter about the new incoming chairman of the board probably didn't sit well with him either, I assume.
Well, it's interesting too because it's they talked about, okay, well, you have Mark Parker. Mark Parker's great, right? And he's like, well, Mark Parker voted for Sky, and I'm like, well, until he didn't. I mean, if you change your mind, do you still get blamed for the thing you didn't do that you thought about doing? That doesn't seem the right way to go about it.
And also,
Mark Parker is famously not a supporter of Bob Chapek, and not that it just seems weird because sure, if this all went down under Bob, the stuff that happened before the CEO change, totally get it, right? Things are going in the pooper, but now you have a new CEO who hasn't really had a chance to show his perspective on things, and you're still fighting it because you sort of committed yourself to it, and you're upset that he doesn't agree with you all the time. So it's on both sides, right? So what Bob Iger doesn't like this guy, so he's doesn't want him on the board, presumably. It just seems personal, which it really shouldn't be.
So going through the other things on here, the other slides that Nelson says that everyone should know about and see. One of them was the lagging stock price, which is receded it's like half of what it was at its highest level.
Sure, but I mean, are you going by the highest level? I mean, that's if we can go back to that price, like this was Investor Day, right? And then as they realize it comes back to earth. I mean, mostly thanks to Netflix just changing the valuation overnight. Disney's strategy never changed in any of this. Now the question should be maybe it should have, but it didn't change. So sure, it's down now. I mean, it's down to basically, sadly near COVID levels, which makes no sense to anybody, right? Like they took all the mess happened before COVID. Anything you want to blame happened before COVID. Then COVID made it worse. Now that the parks are generating record profit, how can you still say that the company should be valued at COVID levels? I don't get it. But it's not, I guess, I would say, oh, well, they're investors. They know what they're doing. But I think we've proven in my time covering this that the investors don't necessarily know what they're doing.
It's true.
And
still snow. Okay, cool.
I think it's interesting, watching the interview with Nelson. He admitted he's not an expert at parks, although that's where the money's coming from. He's also not an expert in streaming. Seems to talk about how it's a consumer company, which, I mean, sure, as a streaming company, direct to consumer, but it's not really a consumer products company. I mean, they do it, it makes money, but that's not really where the hard part is, right? Like, you license it and you get your money. The hard part's making the content that's worthy of being licensed.
So taking off your Disney fan hat, which is very difficult to do, and just putting on your business investing hat, do you think that the case he made on CNBC is convincing to any degree?
I think the interview didn't help him. I think the PowerPoint did, but obviously when you make a PowerPoint, it's not you, it's your team. You're not having the whole team in the board meetings. But I think the case for him would be the why not case. What's the harm? But we don't really know how he's been interacting with other people. He seems very persistent. And at some point, does that just become a distraction that's not worth the time to deal with him? Now you're dealing with him through a proxy fight, But once this is over, if you win it, he's gone, right? You know, he lost unless he tries to do it again. But I don't think he's expecting to spend $25 million on this proxy fight. And I mean, maybe that's why he can't afford a Zoom plan. But
I guess so. So is this presentation that we can find on the website, is this presumably similar to what he presented to the board?
Well, I can show you what he presented to the board. He uploaded that as well.
Okay. Because like, to me, I'm just like, yeah, they know where their stock price is. I'm pretty sure they're familiar with the history of it. I don't know if you really need to point it out to them.
So I just want to see quickly if there's any differences. No, it looks like it's pretty much the same thing.
Okay. Well, so to quote Jackson,
which maybe is why, because when they put it on the website, it still has all this stuff that says like confidentiality, no, not for reproduction. I'm like, it's on your website, dude. So it's probably, it was prepared for the board, and then they're like, okay, well, we'll give it to everybody now.
But as I was saying, yes, to quote Jackson Brown, don't confront me with my failures. I had not forgotten them. And that's kind of what this is. Like, yeah, look at your stock price. Yeah, we know. We're working on it. Like, I just got here, dude.
Right. Well, I mean, there's a little bit. I mean, obviously,
they have my yacht in Australia.
They have a gun. You know, the shareholder meeting only happens once a year, and this is sort of the gun that I think he's under, right? So he wants to get on the board this year, but
and we still don't know when that's gonna. Do we have a shareholder date when the proxy's out, or is
no? We don't have the Disney proxy yet. We just have their proxy.
Okay, but it's on
I keep checking just in case it gets posted, but I don't see it yet.
Okay, because I was a little confused because it's on Disney's site. Has a bunch of proxy documents, and I wasn't sure. That's just
I mean, I'm gonna keep checking. It's a new territory for everybody, I think, but yeah, it seems like currently it's just his version of the proxy, the blue proxy. So if you get a proxy in the mail that's blue, that's for him.
It's kind of like script pages with there's been changes.
Yeah, exactly. So you can decide which way you want to vote. I don't know if Laughing Place is going to give a proxy advice, but
I mean, is there anything SEC wise that says we can't?
No, but I think there's a lot more to come here. I mean, it's just, you're looking at Disney stock price. It's about to break $100. It's up 3%. Now the market is, NASDAQ's up 3%. Too. I don't have the S&P right in front of me, but
I can look up S&P. Last time I checked, it was nominal, 0.22.
Yeah, so
up 8 points.
Yeah, Dow's barely up a point, but that's hard because Disney's on the Dow. So, I mean, basically, but I want to say, as far as Dow performers, Disney is one of the best over year.
I mean, that's kind of because of the nature of the Dow, which is why I prefer the SPX. But
right, well, as you should, but it's just it's an interesting business, and also airlines American Airlines came out today with sort of saying we have a lot more people flying than we expect. I don't know if that's also coming into play with Disney, because of their travel business.
Well, when the FAA's corrupted files aren't getting in the way and grounding everybody. Well, on that note, let's circle back and just mention, and what we've been talking about this whole time. If you missed it, you can rewind it, or we'll probably replay this at some point on LPTV. Go to laughingplace.com/TV or check it out on our YouTube channel. But the proxy for the blue proxy, as we call it, apparently, Nelson Peltz, looking for a spot on the Disney board. Did not get it initially, was not invited by Disney to join it. So now he is asking the shareholders to vote him in. Disney is recommending a vote against this. And he's kind of laying out his case on a site called restorethemagic.com. We have a timeline on our website. If you go to, you can see how this fight came to be, as well as kind of get a view from yesterday of what Mr. Peltz is looking for. But we'll be back plenty of times today, presumably. We'll have our normal news stream at some point, and then we have lots of stuff going on today, not just here, but we'll be at other places. I don't know if I can say other where else. Yeah. So
yeah, I don't think. I mean, where could we? Well, we're at TCA.
yes.
Um. So we have news from that. Do we? And we're I'm trying to think where everyone else is.
You
Oh,
don't like TCA.
well, yeah, I think that's the one we can tell you about. I can promise you, there's a lot more exciting stuff than that too. But
Yes.
Geo has it. Yeah, Geo, you're right. This is not quite as dramatic as the 80s green mail yet. Disney has. We like to think of Disney as a stable company, but if you think about, there's in '84 there was a battle, 2004-5 there was a battle, and I think we're in the midst of another one right now. And
I mean, we
it
literally
happens. It seems to happen like every 20 years.
This one's just
And
interesting because of the timing and the market in general. So
And
yeah,
one thing I would like to point. So Nelson Peltz, not related to Trian, but he's on the board of MSG, which is notoriously a poorly governed company. It's basically privately owned but public, right?
the one building a giant dome in Las Vegas.
Right. Yeah. And
apparently supposed to make money somehow.
somehow, right? And so his response was, "Well, the hockey team's good." And this is the same company that they use facial recognition to, if you are suing them, like if you're a lawyer and like someone gets hurt at a hockey game and you're suing them, they won't even let you into the premises. There was a reporter who a lawyer who was trying to go see the Rockettes and was denied entry with her kids because actually her kids were allowed to go in, but she wasn't because she was suing them for some tort thing. But
MSG owns Radio City.
Yeah, they do. Radio City and the Rockettes. Now there's conversation there. I mean, I'm getting a little out of the weeds here, but we probably want to stay on till at least 8 because we expect more news at 8. But,
I figured we'd reset and.
But they actually have this. They're actually looking at splitting up, and they've changed things because, I mean, quite frankly, the investment in Sphere, which is billions of dollars, they're looking to see how that pays out. But then you have a media company that, if the MSG network, you own sports teams. It's a weird company, and is once again essentially privately owned, basically by people who own Charter Cable. But it's that is still ongoing.
Yeah. So you want to go ahead and stay on, or do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I think we might as well keep. There's more to talk about, so I'm not necessarily related to this, but I did want to talk about Bob Weis. This one caught me off guard. Bob Weis, who said he's retiring out of Imagineering, has been named as he's joining Gensler as their new global immersive experience design leader. Now that's not getting a job, but it's just interesting to me that when people retire from Disney and then get another job, then did they really retire?
They retired from that job,
right? So I have questions. Bob Weis has been with Disney, was with Imagineering on and off forever, and was leading the Marty Sklar archive project. He was a key person behind Tokyo Disneyland, Disney's Hollywood Studios, the California Adventure reinvention, and Shanghai Disneyland. So it's it makes you wonder, was he pushed out or not? Especially knowing what we know now, where Disney was sort of Bob Chapek was pushing people out, maybe for good reasons and bad. So
yeah, that's kind of my question with this. Like, there's so many what ifs with what we've seen over the past couple of years. Like, you wonder if this still would have happened, because I think he announced his planned retirement before Iger came back, or
Yeah, definitely.
yeah. So, and then you also had some Imagineers, some higher profile than other, leaving when we thought that they were moving to Lake Nona right away. And then obviously you've had other retirements like Rhodey leaving and joining Virgin Galactic. I believe he still has some capacity there, even though we haven't heard much about it recently. So yeah, I mean, I wonder if that Conan situation hadn't happened with the CEO position, whether or not we would have seen these exits still. I mean, it's
Now I
hard
want
to
a Disney.
say.
I want a Disney World movie with Daniel Roebuck as Bob Iger,
Uncle Daniel Roebuck.
Uncle Daniel Roebuck. Yeah, it's especially, Bob Iger has not come out either way, whether recommitting or saying no to the Imagineering move. If that's still happening.
But they did delay it for several years, so there's not
Correct.
even the a lot of people left because it sounded like it was going to be imminent, and there's reports that some people already purchased property, already planned to move their families across the country, and they're like, oh, we're delaying it, and not just for a couple months, but for 4 years or whatever it is. So that's a mess. No matter where you stand on it, that's a mess.
Yeah, and you wonder, with the looming uncertainty around it, right? Like, how does Imagineering build these new things? I mean, yesterday we saw Universal Creative announced 2 new experiences, not theme parks in the conventional sense, but a family experience in Texas and sort of a year-round haunt experience in Las Vegas. But who's there? Who's there to if at Imagineering, like, who's going to hire to work in California for 2 years and relocate to Florida? It's the brain drain, one from just sort of the COVID caused retirements and the the movement that was going to happen anyway, the layoffs. Like, it just seems like it's gutted, and then you really need to build that team. I mean, we talked about how Bob Iger wants everyone in the office back in the office 4 days a week, and it kind of needs to happen, right? Because there's no team. Like, you don't even know. You have all these people who've probably never worked with people that are on their team, like never met them in person. Yeah. And I understand why some people are upset. They like working from home, but at the same time, they're I mean, even just from my own life, working from home is great but it's not the same.
No, I mean, sometimes you have to come on live streams at all hours of the day.
Well, did you hear what happened with Starbucks today? Like, they told people they wanted them back in the office 1 day a week, and I guess they checked the badges, like this, the coming into the office, and people weren't doing it, so they told them, okay, now you have to be here 3 days a week. So I know people are pushing back on that stuff, but it'll be interesting to see if society lets it happen, and if it doesn't let it happen, what's the impact on productivity, on just sort of success? Because it's funny, during COVID, Disney relied on a lot of documentaries, about making a Frozen and other things, and you always see these rooms where they're collaborating and do this stuff, and we've gotten used to Zoom. I mean, I think we're all better at Zoom than we used to be, but still not the same. I mean, even for us, we all work remote. Nothing Place doesn't. I mean, it has an office, but no one's there. And but it's I think there's something to be said about coming back. I just got reminded of something I completely forgot to mention about Nelson Peltz's interview.
Okay.
And I think it's important to say. So he's on CNBC. Who owns CNBC, Kyle?
That would be the NBC Comcast.
Correct. And they have this weird agreement with NBC. Disney has a weird agreement with Comcast where basically they have the right to buy, sell Hulu to Disney can be forced to buy Hulu, or Disney can force Comcast to sell Hulu, right? Eventually, the idea right now, obviously the deal could change, is that Disney's going to buy Hulu.
2024 is the current.
Yeah, 2024. And Nelson said that he believes that Disney either needs to buy Comcast stake in Hulu or get out of the streaming business. So, I mean, I think we all understand the reason to buy Hulu's stake. It's, it's going to cost more than they really can afford, but kind of needs to happen. I don't see Disney getting out of the streaming business.
No, I mean, that's kind of the irony. Like we talk about, the hard thing about Disney Plus is that, yes, it's causing all these issues now as far as the investment in it, but it also kept the company afloat when the parks were closed and all the other businesses were closed during COVID. So it's kind of like, okay, you've served your purpose now. I'm not going to make any metaphors there, but hey, Doobie.
Morning, guys.
I'm going to let you talk to Benji for a second before the top of the hour.
Okay, good. Yeah, I was actually going to do the classic Thomas Jefferson line from Hamilton. What did I miss?
Well, so Nelson Peltz was on CNBC this morning and did an interview. Well, he did two parts of an interview because his free Zoom membership expired. So
I saw that tweet. Yeah, that's pretty funny.
So we got the thing, but basically he feels he should be on the board and he's going to fight to get on it. He says Disney's, he brings up everything everybody already knows that Disney has done wrong or isn't doing right. Succession planning, the Fox acquisition, having a crappy balance sheet. No one here is going, what? But,
how did he come across? Does he come across as bitter, as optimistic and excited?
Arrogant, but maybe deservedly so.
But still, sometimes someone like in this position may come on just like they're just so excited. They see so many missed opportunities, and they just can't wait to make the customers happy. And
no. I mean, we talked yesterday about that last slide where it says, nickel and diming cast members or something. He barely talked about parks, and the only thing he said is, I would love to build more parks, but where's the money going to come from? And, when he was asked about the over revenuing of the parks, he didn't really kind of take the bait there. So you might be inclined to think that might have been more of a marketing angle than, a deep-seated belief. But
did he get asked any tough questions?
Yeah. I mean, he got, why are you doing this? You got what you wanted. Why are you still doing this? And I mean, he basically said, why not? And I mean, I shouldn't say he basically said, why not? He did say, why not? And it was, I mean, the CNBC folks are also like, are basically saying to Bob Iger, why not? What's the harm? He's only seeking one board seat. He's not looking for a full corporate takeover. However, the only thing is you look at this guy on TV who is very passionate in his beliefs, and you can see how, he could become an agitator, and you want that on a poorly performing company. There's no question. However, Bob Iger hasn't really had the chance to turn things around yet. Do you really want someone getting in the way of that? And I'm sure Bob Iger doesn't. That's why he's not on the board. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't fight it. But, this is the second time they've dealt with this. They brought somebody else on the board, not, someone they mutually agreed to with Third Point Capital bringing on Carolyn Everson. But this time he wants to be the guy. He didn't want somebody, they said, hey, we'll bring in someone who's mutually agreeable. And he's like, no, I want to be the guy.
Wow.
And
we all want to be the guy. Right.
Well, I mean, and he's he's over the normal sort of mandatory retirement age of the Disney board. Not that they can't waive that, but there's those questions that, basically, what's the point of all this? He started this before the transition, so you would think that he would at least want to see how the transition plays out before if he's truly, trying to do what's right. If there was no ego in here, I can't imagine he would have said, oh, I'm going to keep fighting for this. He would have said, okay, let's give him a minute.
So, last night we went through the 35-page PDF, which I hope we can do again at some point today for anyone that missed it. But was there anything he said that surprised you, given that you have read all that stuff that wasn't in there, or important stuff you may have not mentioned at all?
I don't know it so much. I think what is actually important, and I don't know if you saw it earlier, but we can go through it again, is the timeline. The timeline is
please
fast.
do.
What's that?
Please do go through it again.
Yeah. So I'm gonna just give me 1 second to pull it up.
Yeah, sure.
But
live news as it happens from LPTV.
You know, what's funny is I always like, I'm always like, we have to do these things. But when you watch CNBC, where news happens so fast, they do the same thing we do. They talk about how they're trying to figure out what's going on because they're trying to figure out what's going on at the same time. We are very CNBC-like at times. And I don't mean that necessarily in a good or bad way.
Well, I've been asking for a soundboard that I can hit, but I haven't.
Yeah, we're CNBC during trading hours. We're not CNBC after. Pew, pew, pew. Sell, sell, sell.
Wow.
Okay, so this is actually not what I wanted to get to, but timeline.
Why does Disney control my mind? You know, a lot of us ask that question and don't have an answer.
Okay, so I think what's interesting here, this started July 11th, basically at the opening of Avengers Campus, if I'm not mistaken, right, Kyle? Is that timing about right?
Yeah.
At Hotel New York at Paris. It's funny they put Paris in there because, like, we know that, but maybe not everyone reading the proxy would know that Hotel New York is not in New York.
It's so logical. Yeah.
So, and, you know, he talked about how he's interested, how he's awesome, and that he wants to join the board. He keeps the conversation going with Safra Katz, who is of Oracle. Amy Chang, I'm just drawing a blank on where she's with. I mean, and then apologize to.
It looks like Avengers Campus officially opened on the 20th, but there were previews and stuff. So yeah, I might have been around. I might have seen him.
But I'm sorry, I do want to find out where Amy Chang is from, just because I keep bringing her up. And okay, she's on the board of Procter & Gamble, so you know that's probably where they know each other from. And wants to talk about various matters, and you know, once again, making the pitch for the board seat. September 30th, Disney reaches that agreement with that other investor and agrees that they're going to bring on the Carolyn Everson on November 21st. Fast forward to November 8th. This is that infamous day where the Bob gave the earnings. They were very disappointing, but he was kind of gave the vibe that everything was okay. Next day, he calls and says, I want to really talk to you. We got to get this stuff straightened out. And they discuss various things on November 12th. Then on November 15th, Bob Chapek says, got to cut you off. You need to talk to Christine McCarthy, who, remember, this is the one who's like, I'm tired of being the blame person here, and that's why we should get rid of you. Bob makes her be the point connection. They try to schedule a meeting. She says no after Thanksgiving, you know, and he's like, no, I'm in a rush. And they eventually decide to have, it's poorly written in the proxy statement. On November 20th, Bob Iger becomes CEO. So if you think November 17th is Christine McCarthy is basically trying to buy time because she knows Bob Iger is about to become CEO, right? November 20th, he becomes CEO, and a couple of days later, before they had that big, you know, employee town hall or anything like that, they have a meeting with Bob Iger, Christine McCarthy, and Horatio Gutierrez, who is the Disney's head lawyer, and he gives his whole thing why he should be on the board. And they say, okay, well, we're going to have a board meeting November 30th, and we'll discuss it. After the board meeting, he goes, yeah, we're not doing it. And so then December 1st, he says, okay, proxy fight time. And then basically they kind of keep going back and forth and saying, oh, we got another board meeting. They say, no, still no. They have a board meeting on January 10th. So can you hold off till January 10th? They have a board meeting. They say, Susan Arnold says, nope, on the board. But we'll let you be an advisor. We'll let you get access to the information and you can be an advisor. He says, nope, I want to be on the board. And then that was yesterday. So
how big a stakeholder is he? You know, what makes someone a large Disney shareholder?
0.5% is what Tiana that was released today in the blue proxy that they announced. There's some long, like it's like pi. There's some long numbers after that, but basically 0.5%.
Half a percent. You say wait, 0.5% or 0.5%?
I'm pretty sure
that's the same thing. Never mind. So 0.5%. One out of every 200 shares.
I want to say another thing too that I failed to mention earlier. He was asked on CNBC, does he blame Bob Chapek? And he says, I don't want to speak ill of the departed. But then he goes on and says, I do blame Christine McCarthy for not giving us a heads up how bad the earnings were. So you can see he's with his words, he's saying, I'm not looking for big changes. I'm not looking to replace anybody. But then with his actions, he's like, no, I'm not looking to replace Bob Iger, but I want someone to replace him within 2 years. No more extensions. And
so I have a question. So the investor that, is Disney needs to get rid of ESPN. Ultimately, he got a proxy on the board. Does it say anything at all that Nelson wants to be the man on the board as opposed to just making sure Trian gets some representation on the board?
It's his ego.
Okay.
I'm going that based off of, it's hard to convey that, his interview. I'm sure his interview's online, but he does not come across as a modest man, right? And they asked him specifically, why don't you come out? He's like, no, I know things. I'm good. You want me? Why don't you want me? All these other companies agreed to just bring me on because I'm so good. Why are you not just bringing me on?
So that interview is online and you can watch it. But I would like, if you guys keep talking, I'm just going to try to find a clip just so people can get a sense of how he comes across. I think that can say a lot. So yeah. I don't think CNBC will get too mad if we just show a few seconds. Of course, they realize I don't have an account, so I'm not sure I can. Don't wait for me.
Oh, I'm not. I'm checking. We're getting some other stuff coming in, so I'm checking that out. But
I don't know if either one of you has an account, but I think it would be helpful to be able to show just a couple minutes of that if one of you guys get into that.
Yeah, we can try to get to that. But like you said, we're trying to find some top of the hour is usually when news hits. So we're just going to give a quick search while we keep talking to make it interesting for all of you. It's hard double tasking. So we have some breaking news that I will share in our chat as I dole this out to one of our people to write up. But Tiana's Palace is coming to Disneyland Park later this year. A sugar mill. Yeah, so it looks like I'm just going through this now. So the French Market restaurant is going to become Tiana's Palace, is what it looks like. So, of course, people are familiar with Tiana's Palace as being the restaurant that the character Tiana opens in The Princess and the Frog. And with Tiana's... what is it called? Bayou Adventure coming to coming to the park in 2024. This is something people kind of expected. We just didn't exactly know where, but it sounds like it's going to be an outdoor venue. It's going to take over what was French Market.
Wow, French Market's been around for a long time. So it's going to be weird to have Tiana's Palace and shop.
French Market's. That is the former Pancake House, right?
Great question. I'll ask Ben.
Yeah, that was a rhetorical question. Yes.
Oh, okay. But isn't it weird to have her shop in her restaurant in New Orleans Square and her attraction in Critter Country?
Well, what's great is that this is like farm to table. You have her having the food at the salt mine and then just moving it on over to the restaurant. That's pretty great. It's some vertical integration.
And this comes this fall, this year. You have to give it a timeline. This year. So the attraction's not till next year, but the restaurant's this year. And the shop opened last year. So Tiana is dominating the 20s, the roaring 20s so far.
I think some minor notes here that I just want to make sure. The character is not a character dining location, but guests may find Tiana in New Orleans Square. So despite the concept art,
that is not Tiana and Charlotte.
Big Daddy is not going to be.
It's just random guests having dinner who happen to look like that.
To accomplish this work, French Market's going to be closed. French Market and the Mint Julep Bar. Okay, so no, I'm wrong. River Bell was the pancake house.
That's actually what I thought. Speak up, Judy.
Beginning. So they're going to close February 17th, and then the quick service restaurant, which was French Market, will reopen as Tiana's Place, and the Mint Julep Bar will return.
How does this affect Club 33?
Yeah, that's a good question.
And look at the design of this. It kind of looks like a riverboat. That's kind of cool. It's a pretty nice change.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on River Bell as a prior?
Riverbill Terrace?
Yeah.
The former pancake house? That's not changing?
No, I'm sorry. Just talk. Oh, I'm gonna let you guys talk about this because I gotta listen to this.
Okay. So let's see. French Market, it looks like, and the Mint Julep Bar will be closing beginning February 17th. Thank you for putting that word beginning in there, Disney. We appreciate it, so we know exactly when it's closing and not, is that when it first closed? So February 17th is a huge day because since you can't go to the French Market, you instead can go to Universal Studios where Super Nintendo World will be opening. So that's pretty cool. And speaking of, do I have those pictures? Super Nintendo World is now on the Universal app, and my pictures have not uploaded yet, so I can't show them to you. Ooh, very silly. Any other thoughts on this, Kyle?
Like I said, I'm trying to think of how the layout of that restaurant works as far as, it's the French Market, so it's not Cafe Orleans is the one that would really impact 33, right?
I think so, yeah. Cafe Orleans is the one that's next to Club 33. This is the one that's mostly outdoor seating, unless they've greatly changed it. That's why it's been there. And giving that the concept art shows everyone eating outdoors, I don't think that's crazy thought. Does it say if it's table service or buffeteria? I
haven't read the article because I've been on the air with
you. Know what? You guys do your research. I'm just going to read the article for the piece.
Yeah.
So the newest restaurant in Orleans Street within its peach-colored walls and fancy green wrought iron balconies, you'll find elegant fixtures and appointments reminiscent of Tiana's life and friendships. The new Tiana's Place will have much of the same pinch of pizzazz and flair as the restaurant from the film, offering authentic New Orleans flavors inspired by Tiana's friends and adventures in this quick service style restaurant. While Tiana's Palace is not a character dining location, guests may find Tiana in New Orleans Square. The menu at Tiana's Palace will expand on many of the current favorites served in the location, explore seasonal flavors, and of course offer some New Orleans classics. Tiana's Palace is sure to be a gathering place for friends and family to enjoy great food and celebrate together, just like Tiana and her father dreamed of. Let's see. Disney Imagineers are partnering with Disney animation artists from the original film to bring this story to life at Disneyland Park. In fact, the film designers took inspiration from the exterior of the original French Market restaurant in New Orleans Square when designing Tiana's Palace for the movie. So this is a long-dreamt homecoming. So when creating Princess and the Frog, they took inspiration from French Market, and now French Market is turning into Tiana's Palace. This is kind of like Pirates of the Caribbean, where your child comes and eats you up. To begin this work, French Market Restaurant and Mint Julep Bar will be closed beginning February 17, 2023, which is a little over a month away, and reopen as Tiana's Palace alongside the Mint Julep Bar with its famous mint juleps and Mickey beignets later in the year.
We do need those man-catching beignets.
I was worried that the beignets, you can't have this without beignets, so thank you. And let's see what else we got here.
I just was looking up because there's so many. I didn't realize how many restaurants there are in the area. So I'm looking at French Market to remind. I've seen it. I've obviously seen the thing. But I couldn't tell you what exactly it was. It is quick service now, so I'm kind of inclined to think it would continue to be. But at the same time, if they're talking about the pizzazz of the restaurant, it feels like
it is very interesting that they don't specifically say what it's going to be.
Yeah, I feel like also just like looking at the setup here, I would imagine it would still be quick service, but then that makes me a little sad because if they're going to do this, I would want them to do it all out and make it table service and make it like the movie, whereas this is, and especially if they're going with Tiana's Palace, because so there's Tiana's Place is what she imagines, and then Tiana's Palace at the end is the actual restaurant that she has. So maybe they should have called this Tiana's Place, and then we'll have a more fancy upscale version later on.
There's the menu for French Market. You can see it's already a New Orleans flair, obviously, and they did say that many of these things or this same style of menu would be what's there when it opens as Tiana's Palace. Yeah, so French Market is what they used to call a buffeteria, unless they changed it. And if anyone's been there lately, not wrong, but a buffeteria, kind of like Plaza Inn, if you've been over there, where it's buffet style, but they are serving you. You're walking through, say, so it's not like a quick service where you walk up to a counter and then they go away and come back with your food. And presumably this is, they didn't mention exactly what style of service it is.
Well, doesn't buffet imply that it's all you care to enjoy? So isn't it just a cafeteria where you go around and grab stuff?
Well, that's what, I don't know why they call it a buffeteria instead of a cafeteria, and maybe they don't anymore. You saw it said counter service, but I know back when I used to go, Cafe Orleans and French Market were the buffeterias. Apparently there is going to be a dress code, because if you look at everyone here, they're looking really, really nice. So
that's true.
No dress code, I'm sure, but if you dress in your finest, maybe you'll end up on a concept art in the future.
Or if you're in the movie, that helps you as well. It helps really boost your chances.
So what's this about Bob Iger's yacht that I somehow missed?
Oh, so in the proxy statement released by Tiana, they mention how he wanted to have a meeting with him, but Bob Iger was too busy on his yacht in Australia, off the coast of Australia, presumably, not in the middle of it. So yeah, that's where that came in. Gotcha. Obviously, okay. It's important. But no, it's funny because it kind of, to us, hinted, oh yeah, I bet you he probably had this plan before he realized he was going to be CEO of the company again. It's like, I'm not giving up my Australian yachting. I mean, he was down under for real, not just Ireland.
I would love to know what Bob is thinking these days. I mean, obviously the guy's well paid, well loved, but in his mind, if I can get into the mind of a CEO, he's thinking, I'm retired, I'm happy, but this company needs help, so I'm going to sacrifice my retirement to some extent and come back and help out this company. And now he's thinking, and this is the thanks I get. This is the stuff I have to put up with as a result. Look at this. I've been married long enough to know at some point you just want to go, why am I Bob? Not that I love my wife, never divorced. But in your mind, you're like, why am I putting up with this stuff? So I can only imagine what was going through Bob Iger's mind at this point. But
yeah. And on that note, let's look how we do have that video of Nelson on CNBC. We have a clip of that if you want to get that.
Absolutely, we do. So
can all put ourselves in Bob's shoes and be like, do we want to deal with this guy?
Just look for Ben. Do you want to play it or do you want me to play it? I'll play it.
Someone will play it. Playing will be
this is a clip. It's about a 5-minute clip that CNBC has tweeted.
Well, you saw the news about his Zoom, right?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I do think this is worth watching. So let's just go ahead and play this in its entirety. It's only 5 minutes.
Joining us now is Nelson Peltz. He's Trian Partners founder and CEO. Nelson, great to have you. So much to get to. Let me start by changing a quote from a famous movie with my first question. Of all the companies and all the industries and all the world, you got to walk into Disney. Why? Why Disney? And why you?
David, good morning. And good morning, Jim. Why not? We have skin in the game. You know, we look at a company and we look at Disney and we say that this is the most advantaged consumer company on the planet. And we love it. That's the reason why we're here. However, the TSR, the total shareholder return over 1, 3, 5, 10 years has materially underperformed the S&P and underperformed the proxy peers that the companies selected. Equally as important, there are a lot of retail investors in this company. They eliminated the dividend that was in effect for 57 years. 57 years of a dividend, and now it's gone. And now they want to tell us that everything's going to be great again. We think that we can help. We have a record of helping, David. David, I know you've seen our slide deck. You know, if you look at our slide deck, okay, if our slide deck only had 3 pages, it would be page 5, which is the stock chart. That would be our first page. Okay. It would be page 8. That would be our second slide. Page 8 tells us that on every board that I have served on, and I've probably served on more boards than anybody that I know, that company, whatever board it was, has outperformed the S&P by 900 basis points annually.
Nelson,
and you know,
Nelson,
David, we're very long term.
I know you are. You're very long term, average of as much as 6 years. That cannot be a criticism leveled against Tryon in any way. And people can follow at home when you call out page numbers. But let me come to some specifics here as well, which is, you know, you're going after a company that has now announced it's replacing its chairman, that since you built your position has replaced its CEO, and that has embarked on a cost-cutting program that seems to at least mirror to a certain extent some of the things you're asking for. Why continue to want a board seat when they seem to be doing a lot of very active things, Nelson?
Think of all the positive impacts we've had in just such a short period of time. Think how much more we can help. The fact that they changed their chairman, well, they had to. Miss Arnold is stepping down this year, but they picked Mr. Parker, who did a wonderful job at Nike. Now, Mr. Parker will be the second of only 2 people that we know of in corporate America that are chairman of 2 companies simultaneously. But he was here. He voted for the Fox acquisition. He voted to make the acquisition of Sky. Think about that. They lost about $50 billion on Fox. Fox hurt this company. Fox took the dividend away. Fox created what was once a pristine balance sheet into a mess.
Right.
Had they bought Sky, which he and everybody else bought, they would have spent $100 billion. They would have spent $34 billion at their price for something that analysts estimate today is worth $9.
All true, Nelson. Although when it comes to Sky, when it comes to Sky, obviously they did bid it up, but then our parent company paid and they benefited from that as a significant shareholder and owner of Fox, that being Disney. You know, listen, I know you're focused on the Fox deal.
David,
David,
you're 100% right. But the $50 billion is after the Sky proceeds.
Wonder if is that where it cut off in the original? Is that where his Skype went out, or is oh, you're muted, Ben? Sorry, I can't unmute you. You have to do it.
Unmute yourself.
No, it went on for much longer than that before it got cut off.
Gotcha.
So that is Nelson Peltz of Trian Partners, who wants to force his way on the Disney board since Disney does not want to ask him to come on the board. And he making his case both with the humorously named website, Restoring the Magic or Restore the Magic?
Restore the Magic. I think Restoring Magic is the Twitter.
Right.
It's really hard to get that.
The other one was taken already. I went and looked, and the matching Twitter is taken by, I think, some Disney fan.
Someone that knows one.
So making his case both on the website and an extensive PDF, and this morning on CNBC, why Disney needs him. He is the guy that can right the wrongs that this company is going down right now. And he mentioned some specific pages. We talked about the 35-page PDF. He mentioned 3 specific pages. If we could direct you to 3 pages, these are the 3. So we're going to take a look at those 3 right now, if I can read Benji's screen share accurately right down there. And let Benji do some discussion of that.
So this is the first page he's talking about, the stock price. It's so if you look here, here's where it's about. Well, was about 95.56. You see the peak up here, in the aftermath of the investor day, where we were all aghast with all the amazing things coming. Down here, the low, that's sort of the COVID drop that you'd expect. So, they're basically not that far from COVID performance. And then, you'll see it going back, it goes up and down. So obviously, they're talking about it's near its 8-year low, sure, but you're picking random parts, right? Like it's not near its 10-year low. It's not near its 5-year low. It's just you picked 8 to make it look bad. But there is no question that the stock is low, and I think the question really is, why is it so low, even with all the issues Disney has? Is it at COVID levels? That just doesn't make any sense. Either it should have been lower during COVID or, better now. But, and then here's this other side. This is the story, 900 basis points, AKA 9%, is how, when they've been on the board, Nelson has been on the board comparing their stock performance to the S&P. So, we talked about how some of these cases have worked well, some have not for him, but if you take the time that he's on the board, they've gone up 9% compared to S&P. And now it's something he said is that he usually comes on boards when they're low, right? And he thinks he can make, so the upside is huge. It's not, you're not going to a company that's performing well and then still making it better. So and then the last one here is the TSR, total shareholder return. So how has Disney done, in terms of if you invested $1 in Disney over 10 years, 5 years, 3 years, and 1 year. So you have Disney at 107% over 10 years, the S&P at 223%, and 478% for company proxy peers. And these are companies that Disney has said are their other they're kind of competitors or analogous companies. Just for the record, that's Alphabet, aka Google, Amazon, Apple, AT&T, Comcast, Discover, Warner Brothers Discovery, that company, Meta, Netflix, and Viacom, also known as Paramount now. So you can see that Disney has actually over the last 5 years has lost 10%, 3 years 34%, and 1 year 39%, which is not that different than the company peers on the 1 year. But noticeably he didn't pick the 15-year, which would be the Bob Iger sort of difference. So those are the slides that he felt are the most important.
Which are, pretty obvious things that anyone could find. It doesn't really tell you how you're going to fix it. It just shows, hey, the company has been up and down. It's like, yeah, that's kind of how companies work. I don't know if this is really illuminating as much as he thinks it is when you can Google $Diz and look at all this information. You can just highlight it and see that it's been down over the past 5 years. It's not rocket science.
But his point is why, and it shouldn't be, and if he's there, it won't be.
Well, yeah, he's got the magic touch because he wouldn't have purchased Fox and wouldn't have bought Sky, even though they didn't.
I will say, I want to bring up something on the streaming front. It's not Disney related, but it's amongst its peer. HBO Max is raising its cost $1 from $14.99 to $15.99. And that's really, Disney just raised their prices in December. So obviously Disney is going to need to raise the price of Disney Plus, Hulu, their streaming services. And they have, but it'll be interesting to see how that grows compared to how costs grow, which is really what they have to do, right? They have to grow revenue either through subscribers or how much they get per subscriber and, keep the costs about the same. It's not rocket science.
It's two things that aren't rocket science. And one.
I'm going to steal your screen share for just a moment. I do think it's interesting that Disney right now is up pretty big, even compared to the S&P. It's up pretty big this morning, 3.5%, approaching 3 digits again, which about a week ago, it was back down in the 80s. So thanks, Nelson. Or no, actually, is there a reason that Disney stock may be up this morning?
Well, so there's a couple of things. I mean, obviously the stock market's up as a whole. That doesn't account for all of it. They could be reacting to this news. That would not surprise me. Also, the airlines delivered strong guidance today, which would cause there to be expectation that the theme parks are going to be performing well.
And Nelson, I'm calling him Nelson because that's what he calls himself all the time, never by his last name. So, but we're not tight. He mentioned page 5, 8, and 13. But Ben, if you could go to page 35, and if I could share one page with the Disney fans, this is the one, and maybe you could talk about what jumped out as its closing argument.
Well, so it's interesting because he didn't really mention this at all during the interview. They even asked him about it, and he says, "I'd love to build more parks, but where's the money going to come from?" And so my takeaway from the interview was that this slide was included for sales reasons and this isn't a real deep held issue, but talked about how basically they're nickel and diming cast members, not overcharging at the parks, and this is not good for business. I mean, the tagline on the bottom: Disney may believe that price increases and nickel and diming of cast members and other costs is good for the bottom line. However, we suspect it is short-term thinking that puts the brand value and long-term health of the business at risk. So, they talked about how the park in the interview. They talked about how the parks business is doing well, and so Jim Cramer's like, "Well, why don't you just build more parks?" And he goes like, "I'd love to, but we can't afford. They can't afford it." Jim Cramer saying, "Well, you can make it work, but I mean, we've talked a lot on these streams about how the streaming business is really impacting Disney's ability to invest in the parks. Tiana's restaurant notwithstanding."
And as he points out, he has another chart somewhere here that cumulatively, up until now, the streaming business, Disney Plus, presumably ESPN Plus, Hulu, has lost $11 billion as they, have their. It's one thing to say we're going to be profitable in 2024, but that doesn't tell you how much you're actually going to lose in the meantime. Up until now, they've lost $11 billion and are expected to lose $15 billion before they actually turn profitable. So fine, you've reached break even, you've started making money, but you still have $15 billion to make up for. That's a part of his complaint. It's not necessarily the timing of when you turn profitable, but how much you chose to lose reaching that point. And that Chapek took a lot of heat for that. And frankly, the losses that he took in the most recent year are probably the reason that he's no longer with the company more than anything else. And lack of guidance on those losses.
Yeah.
Well, and this begs, what struck me is that we never got the sort of full Disney Plus experience. Because they announced, okay, here's our content stream. Here's what we're going to want to get to. Then COVID happens. It just hampers the ability to even deliver it, right? Because of decreased production. And then they finally, that starts to subside. And then Wall Street changes their mind. Is basically like, no, hold back. Like we're not sure if this business is successful. So,
but
interesting.
COVID is also why part of the reason their subscriber growth went so fast, though, is people are sitting at home with nothing to do. They got some benefit out of that too, I think.
Sure, but it's hard to see. It's hard to see at this point where the Disney Plus subscriber number is going to be, because let's face it, in the tail end of the last quarter, which they haven't announced yet, they raised prices and they added the ad tier. We do not know what that's going to do to the number.
Do we expect to find that out on February 8th?
Yeah, I mean, we'd have to, but I think that's the big question, right? And, you're not going to get full economic data on it because, the pricing, you raise prices on December 8th. That's, it's January 8th before everyone's even paid it, right? But you at least get some idea of how it affected the subscriber numbers, and then hopefully get some guidance as to, how many people even changed to the lower tier? How have ad sales been? Do you make more money on someone at the ad tier than the non-ad tier? Those are all questions that I mean, maybe people smarter than I know the answer to, but I don't know the answer to.
Before we do
Everyone's
it,
smarter than
well, I think we should do maybe a bottom of the hour reset in a moment, but it's Ducks Day at DCA, and here's the official Anaheim Ducks Twitter, and they put out a short little video that I'm going to share right now.
What's going on? Good morning. We're here at Anaheim Ducks Day. We're at Disney, California.
Yeah, I wish Disney's balance sheet was better so that we could rebuy the Ducks.
And we actually plan out. Benji does a good job of planning out our coverage, well in advance. And there was a time when we thought Ducks Day was going to be the biggest thing happening on January 12th. But people plan, God laughs.
Who's to say it's not?
Okay. I'm gonna have to switch to our other set. But
Oh yeah, you're still at home. I'm all thinking you're right over there.
But if we get more information, I'll be happy to come in. I know we got some other stuff, some other things to talk about. But
Right. So Kyle and I take care, Ben. Kyle and I will do kind of our normal morning show here, and we'll do a quick reset of this story, not quite as in depth, and then go through some of the other things happening in the world of Disney this morning.
I haven't had a chance to prepare the weather. I'm going to warn you right now.
Okay, so does that mean you just want to skip it?
We can skip it, or I can try to.
All right. Well, we're going to start with the stock price, which you already know, so I'm not going to quiz you on that. But love that.
Yeah, I pulled that up earlier when Ben and I were talking, and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting. What does it mean, Ben?" He's like, "I don't know." I'm like, "All right. Well, thanks for the analysis."
So the S&P overall, the market is essentially flat, 0.03%. We don't count that as anything. But
1 point on the S&P 500.
But Disney keeps going up now, just over 3.5%, inching towards 100. I'm going to keep this window open. If that gets to 3 digits, I'm showing that. I don't care what we're doing. Breaking news: Disney.
It's kind of like you watch your odometer flip over
right
for the next 1,000.
So, and why is that happening? We're not exactly sure, because the stock market, there's nothing rational about it. But one of the reasons may be the top story today, and that is the launch of RestoreTheMagic.com, which is a website pushing for, man, I can't remember his name. Nelson
I feel
Peltz.
like I should point out, despite that thing we were talking about, that last thing where it talks about nickel and diming, when they say restore the magic, they mean shareholder value. They are not talking about the same thing that we say when we say restore the magic.
Kyle, cynical Kyle. The picture in Restore the Magic, am I pointing the right way? Yes, the picture in Restore the Magic is Cinderella Castle. We're not sure if it's
capital expenditure that offers no shareholder value. It's not monetized.
But that is what they call
can't monetize an Instagram photo.
That is the magic to them. They talk about not nickel and diming. They talk about
that once. That's
what
what
talked about on CNBC. Maybe we should build more parks. He talked about how the parks should not subsidize the rest of the company. This guy talks like an annual pass holder, Kyle, which he might be, except he can't buy one right now.
Can't find my new slide I just made. Oh, there it is.
Actually, I'm not sure if that's sarcasm alert. That's not.
I will say to get you up. I was talking about this with Ben. When Ben and I talked yesterday, he mentioned that Mr. Peltz is very known for cost cutting, and then I see while you guys were talking that there was this that last quote about the nickel and diming, and I said, "Oh, did we peg this guy wrong?" And then like Benji was saying, it seems like it's that statement was more of a play and not really what his entire thing is about. So sure. I do think it's still fair to say that Restore the Magic is just big enough to work on all levels, but that personally they probably do mean restore the magic of the company in terms of making money, not in terms of guest experience up to the point where having satisfied guests increases shareholder value.
I have no doubt that that's his goal. He owns the company owns 1 out of every 200 shares in Disney, if I know how to do percentages right. But this document, I believe, is equally as aimed towards convincing people like us. And if you remember Save Disney, we have some degree of, it gets some attention. He used the Disney font. He used the word magic, and he talks about the parks. But this is a political tool. This 35-page PDF, which you're looking on the screen now, it's important to remember this is not some SEC filing. There's no regulations on this like there would be for some official document. This is a political tool. This is no different than going to joeblowcandidate.com and seeing them make their points about why they are the best candidate for the job. And this does not read it, take it in, try to understand it, but realize Disney will have a response to this. That will be very, very interesting. And we are so eagerly awaiting that response.
Well, so we've actually seen part of the response already, even before this was fully out, because they did kind of outline it in the announcement yesterday of Mark Parker. Tacked onto the bottom of that was kind of a reveal that they recommended that shareholders vote against this guy, and they kind of already outlined like Bob Iger has done this, we've done this, we've done this, and then hearing his argument today, they've already kind of rebutted part of that and being like, yeah. Fox, it costs us money, but we're investing in this. So I know Disney will have a more full-throated response, but I think that they have responded somewhat in that.
Good point. And I'm looking for their response. Presumably at some point, somebody from Disney or one of their proxies is going to be on CNBC and answering questions, and that's going to be exciting.
Not LPTV.
We're open.
Did you get them the hotline number? I hope you didn't.
Anyone from Disney proxy wants to come on LPTV and make your case against Nelson, you can have 24 hours. I'll give you the whole day.
Dreams, wishes, fantasies.
Could Barker perhaps be playing into the Wall Street bump? His choice to be the successor as chairman of the board.
Maybe people love them some Nike.
It's still 99.62. Come on, 100. Oh no, it's down to 99.53. Dang it.
You should go buy some shares, and then I'm sure the 2 shares you can buy.
Because I'm going to get into that. Do the whole 100 thing.
Disney 100 celebrates with Disney 100.
Oh my! There's a meme. Disney 100, but the 100 is just this little screenshot of the stock price and it being up X%. We're doing that.
Yes. We'll just literally just put it over the other 100.
So 2 days ago now, man, so much is happening. 2 days ago, it was only 2 days ago where Josh D'Amaro sent his letter to cast and outlined some of the changes they were going to be making, which clearly were aimed at getting rid of some of the nickel and diming. Charging guests for resort parking is the epitome of nickel and diming. And we were all wondering, is the other shoe going to drop? And we were assured there is no other shoe to drop. And from Disney, there was no other shoe to drop. But in the wider scope of things, it does make you wonder how that timing worked out. My money, it's not a coincidence. Now, I don't know if Disney knew this was going to happen, and so they put their thing out first. I don't know if Disney put their thing out, and then Treon said, "Oh, we better get our thing out now." I just don't buy that it's 100% coincidence these happen on successive days.
We did mention earlier that it seems like the presentation that is on Treon's site is at least largely the same one that he presented to the board of directors, because there's even like confidentiality things in there.
Not for reproduction or distribution.
Yes, exactly. So he might have added that slide after the fact. It's not inconceivable, but it's also possible that they knew that was one of his points and it might be one that would stick, and so tried to counteract that. Because the other part of this is, he was planning to launch this today, and Disney kind of undercut him by revealing it themselves yesterday. So that might, they were definitely aware of this and were ready to.
You're saying that this is a PDF, so I want to download it now and see if I can get into the metadata and find out anything about the history of this document.
Well, I tried to find the other little bit of this. I went on a similar journey yesterday when you sent me the official Twitters, because we saw that they joined in 2020 or something. So I wondered what their username was before that, or whether they just had this parked for 2 years. And I failed on that front, unfortunately. But I did try many different tools to try to see what their former username might have been.
So I want to we did this about a half hour ago. I want to do it again. He's been on CNBC this morning. It was an excessive thing, but they tweeted out 5 minutes. Let's go ahead and show this again.
You want to show that full screen for a second?
I'm sorry?
You want to show that full screen for a minute?
This?
I'm going to step away for a second.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Thank you. Yeah, give us a second to kind of regroup here. And it's worth both seeing and hearing things straight from his mouth. So let's go ahead and take a listen and a view at 5 minutes of his appearance on CNBC this morning.
Joining us now is Nelson Peltz. He's Trian Partners founder and CEO. Nelson, great to have you. So much to get to. Let me start by changing a quote from a famous movie with my first question. Of all the companies and all the industries and all the world, you got to walk into Disney. Why? Why Disney? And why you?
David, good morning. And good morning, Jim. Why not? We have skin in the game. You know, we look at a company and we look at Disney and we say that this is the most advantaged consumer company on the planet. And we love it. That's the reason why we're here. However, the TSR, the total shareholder return, over 1, 3, 5, 10 years has materially underperformed the S&P and underperformed the proxy peers that the companies selected. Equally as important, there are a lot of retail investors in this company. They eliminated the dividend that was in effect for 57 years. 57 years of a dividend, and now it's gone. And now they want to tell us that everything's going to be great again. We think that we can help. We have a record of helping, David. David,
Yep.
I know you've seen our slide deck. You know, if you look at our slide deck, okay, if our slide deck only had 3 pages on it, it would be page 5, which is the stock chart. That would be our first page. Okay. It would be page 8. That would be our second slide. Page 8 tells us that on every board that I have served on, and I've probably served on more boards than anybody that I know, that company, whatever board it was, has outperformed the S&P by 900 basis points annually.
Nelson,
And you know,
Nelson,
David, we're very long term.
I know you are. You're very long-term, average of as much as 6 years. That cannot be a criticism leveled against Trian in any way. And people can follow at home when you call out page numbers. But let me come to some specifics here as well, which is, you know, you're going after a company that has now announced it's replacing its chairman, that since you built your position has replaced its CEO, and that has embarked on a cost-cutting program that seems to at least mirror to a certain extent some of the things you're asking for. Why continue to want a board seat when they seem to be doing a lot of very active things, Nelson?
Think of all the positive impacts we've had in just such a short period of time. Think how much more we can help. The fact that they changed their chairman, well, they had to. Miss Arnold is stepping down this year, but they picked Mr. Parker, who did a wonderful job at Nike. Now, Mr. Parker will be the second of only 2 people that we know of in corporate America that are chairman of 2 companies simultaneously. But he was here. He voted for the Fox acquisition. He voted to make the acquisition of Sky. Think about that. They lost about $50 billion on Fox. Fox hurt this company. Fox took the dividend away. Fox created what was once a pristine balance sheet into a mess.
Right.
Had they bought Sky, which he and everybody else bought, they would have spent $100 billion. They would have spent $34 billion at their price for something that analysts estimate today is worth $9.
All true,
So
Nelson.
that's
Although
on-
when it comes
that's-
to Sky, when it comes to Sky, obviously they did bid it up, but then our parent company paid and they benefited from that as a significant shareholder and owner of Fox, that being Disney. You know, listen, I know you're focused on the
hold
Fox
it,
deal.
David,
Yeah,
David,
yes.
you're 100% right. But the $50 billion is after the Sky proceeds.
So, and then I think it's you.
That's just one clip. It sounds like he was actually on for about 30 minutes with them this morning, broken up between his free Skype or free Zoom call ending, which is pretty funny for a man who's worth $1 billion. But,
yeah, I love this tweet. Whoever thought to do this, bravo. Nelson Peltz is on Wikipedia, so if you want to learn much more about him, go check that out. Been married 3 times. He has 8 children with his 3rd wife. 8 children. That's pretty cool. Yeah. So that's the big story, and we'll be talking more about that today. The way Disney news is flying fast and furious this week, I can't imagine there's not going to be more major developments today, and that's why LPTV is here. But in the meantime, other corporate news. Mark Parker was named as the incoming chairman of the board for Disney. Oh, go for it.
It's never a good thing when activist investors are bored and want to put their mark on the company. I worked for a company which that happened, and almost the changes they wanted were undone after. Interesting.
Yeah, and it's common, somewhat common for activist investors to want to come in and make money quick, like sell things off, whatever. And he's not. In fact, he's talking about why don't they build more parks, and they need to buy the rest of Hulu. So it does not seem to be a case where a guy just wants to come in and raid the company and make some quick money. Now, you may not agree with the decisions he's making, but it does not seem to be he wants to break up Disney and pocket the cash.
Right. And there, like we mentioned, has a history. It sounds like several times, as he shares in the document, there's been several times, or his letter at least, I don't remember what's in the document, but several times he's asked to be on the board. Most of the time, the majority of the time, he's been invited to join the board without a proxy fight. 3 times it's gone to a proxy fight. Twice he won. Once he lost, but he notes that after that, then the CEO was fired eventually, like sometime later. He signed an NDA and still joined the board.
So I think he's calling his shot. He's saying, you can ask me to come, or I can force my way on, but I will be on your board.
Yeah, except you're like, yeah, so in the last one, the one where you lost, you got the CEO fired. Well, you already did that before you really launched the thing. So,
so I asked Ben yesterday how the whole Chapek ouster might have related to him, because Chapek, as we saw, did not seem to be one to. It takes a lot for a CEO to stand up to Wall Street. Ultimately, Wall Street are the real bosses, and Iger is able to do that. That's one of his strengths, and it did not look like Chapek was. So we wondered, was the fact that Peltz was talking to Disney and trying to get on the board, and Chapek was there, who perhaps didn't have the strength to keep him off. Might that have been one of the reasons why Disney board members were saying, we need to get some strength back in here? Chapek just isn't a guy. Among all his other problems, he's not a guy that can fend off an outsider like this, and that's even one more reason why Bob Iger is again the CEO of the company, and I expect it is a factor. But anyway, speaking of the board, Kyle, I'll let you do this one.
Yeah, so Mark Parker, who has been on the board, has been elected to be the chairman of the board, but this is contingent. Obviously, we have to get to the shareholder meeting. That has to be voted on, so he's not the chairman yet. It's still Susan Arnold. But Susan Arnold is stepping down because...
We have breaking news, Kyle. We have breaking news.
Okay, screenshot. Make sure you put the plus 377 part in there.
I got it.
Okay. So yes, back to Mark Parker. So Susan Arnold is term limited. They have a 15-year limit. So she is stepping down, and he, if all goes well, will be ascending. And what Benji says is one notable thing about Mark Parker. So even though Chapek, we famously got that the what's the word? Unanimous contract extension from the board, and then got fired a few months later. It was unanimous in that they knew it was going to pass anyway, so they just decided to make it unanimous so that it would be, hopefully be a boost. But Mark and Mary Barra were two that were a little bit more skeptical and pushed back a bit. So that is interesting now that one of the two people who pushed back about Chapek earlier is now going to be ascending. And then, like he mentioned, he is also I think he is the chairman of Nike as well. So he will be doing double duty, it sounds like, right?
Yeah, according to Nelson, that's exactly what he just said. He hasn't seen someone be a chairman in two companies, but he's about to be. And he looks pretty young. He could be here a while. Is there a term limit on chairman?
In general, I think it's 15 years, because obviously Susan wasn't chairman of the board for 15 years. Iger had a dual role previously. So she became chairman of the board when Iger stepped down in that capacity. Now, Iger is once again a director, but he is not the chairman.
Okay, the next story, so we recap some of the big.
Hopefully I said that all right, and she's driving, probably pulling his hair out. No, that's not right.
Recap some of the other big stories from the past 24 hours, and that is, again, I'll give this one to you, Kyle.
So Bob Weis, who was previously the president of Walt Disney Imagineering, he retired at the end of last year. Has not officially retired from working, as he has taken a new job with Gensler. Your guess? I'm going to go with Gensler. And he's going to be their global immersive experiences design leader. So there's that. I don't 100% know what that means. I've never heard of this company personally. But this is not the first time where we've seen someone retire from Imagineering and then go on to have another job. Joe Rohde went to Virgin Galactic. Iger, which was not an Imagineer, obviously, was investing in other things and taking on. Sounds like he was very close to taking on a different job before he was brought back to Disney. So I think there's, it makes you wonder a little bit, like if you're retiring, but you're not really retiring, it just means you wanted to leave Disney. And why is that? And would that have happened had things turned out a little bit differently in terms of the leadership changes that we saw over the past few years? It does make you wonder. At least it makes me wonder. Does it make you wonder?
No.
Okay, fair enough. But it's also worth mentioning that even before he retired, he hasn't been president for a while. He turned that over to Barbara Bosa in 2021, I believe. So he had a year of being an ambassador, basically a fake title, and then retired then at the end of last year.
The only thing he says, why he clearly still wants to work. So why couldn't he keep doing that at Disney? I presume he was pushed out, and I think if I had total speculation, but just knowing what we've heard about from Imagineering, it sounds like could be like a morale thing. Like if you think it's going downhill and you're not happy with the changes and directives, then good point. Other huge news outside of Disney, but very, very adjacent. Super Nintendo World is on the verge of opening. February 17th, it officially opens at Universal Studios Hollywood. And the Universal Studios Hollywood app has been updated with some Super Nintendo World. So just check out some of these slides here. This is a fun looking place.
This is awesome.
This also says coming soon. Mario Kart Bowser's Challenge. Yes. Can't say Bowser without doing that. The Toadstool Cafe. And so they are definitely going to be having previews and such. So we will be out there as soon as we possibly can. We actually Mike Celestino got to go to a guided preview with no attractions earlier this week. And we put up a ton of pictures from that. And we talked to Mike. And as soon as he's able to get in there again, we will certainly get more information and more pictures and video and such. And for Tony, I don't know if Tony Betty's out there, but They also have information on the virtual line for Super Nintendo World. So, welcome back, Ben.
Hey, I just want to come on because we got some. I don't want to say it's not breaking news, but it's a milestone, if anything. Disney stock is up above $100 again.
We already shared that live, and we're going to make a meme.
That's what I get for driving.
We just figured you were listening while you were driving. I even tweeted it out. Here you go.
Very nice.
So, let's see what else we got here. Oh, Bob Weis. Recap Tiana's Palace in a moment, but I wanted to. This is really cool to me. I saw these pictures, of course, on TikTok this morning. This is where I get all my news now. I used to laugh. There are people that get their news on the Daily Show or get their news on Facebook. Now I get my news on TikTok. So,
yeah, I always get. I love getting my news from the CCCP.
These are some really cool magic shots that are coming to Festival of the Arts, in my opinion. Especially this one over here. Let me get a better shot of that for you guys.
You can tell that was definitely not drawn by a Disney Channel star.
Have you seen that Defunct Land on the Disney Channel theme song? And it has a lot on the drawing in there. That guy, I don't know who he is. He kind of keeps secret his actual identity, I think, but he makes some great documentaries. So yeah, here's some of the Festival of the Fun Show. Figment. These kind of scare me. The ones with the zoom in, zoom out. Those freak me out a little bit. But this drawing, yeah.
If the Defunct Land guy if it's like identity secret, is there a possibility it's Nelson Peltz?
Distinct possibility. Yeah, if he ever gets on the market, becomes a free agent, I'm going to make a bid for LP to sign him because I'm a big fan. I would love to have him under the LP umbrella. Some Figment rainbows. That's so cool. He's like cartoon.
We don't have the balance sheet, do we?
Yeah, got that right.
Or cash pour.
What was that Fox acquisition? We used to pay dividends.
That Celestino acquisition was just too much.
Yeah, it's
I
not
have
easy
to pick
to.
a name. I mean, if I'm going to pick on someone, that Betty acquisition, we overpaid, and now we're.
Well, no, the Mike one actually makes a lot of sense because we had to lure him over from somewhere else.
Yeah, but then I was going to say we're overpaid, and I don't want to make even joking.
No. It's okay. He's busy. He won't see this. Mike Celestino just walking around.
All right. Appropriate? Anybody have any issues with this?
This one I think they've had several times before.
That does not change my question.
No, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's not.
Okay.
I mean, it's. I mean, you're doing it.
This is
it'd be like. I mean, would you consider if you putting up a chair and saying it's a Lincoln Memorial? Would you have an issue with that?
Yeah. Put up the chair and have people sit in it like it's the Lincoln Memorial?
It's not the Ford Theater seat.
Oh, you've gone from bad to worse. No, certain things, no, I would have a problem with that, yes. This Figment one is real. This is my favorite. This is the one that got my attention this morning.
I wish they would let you do two versions. So you have this one where it's just superimposed, and another where they actually just keep the shutter open and let you try light painting. Because what you do is you just take like a glow stick and you just do it while you keep yourself as still as possible. And with the long shutter, then it does that naturally. So I think it'd be fun if you had compare, kind of like when you go to the Animation Academy and you can compare your drawing to what the person on stage did.
So yeah, that's Festival of the Arts kicks off tomorrow. So that's my favorite part now. I've never seen a magic shot before where I go, I want to make a point to do that magic shot, but now I want to do this one. And I'm not even a Figment fan, but it's just so cool.
And just a reminder that the free photos, the PhotoPass photos that will come with Genie Plus do not include these sort of things. That will just be on-ride photos. So that
is a great clarification. They will still nickel and dime you for that, is what you're saying, right?
Yes. Basically, you have to get your Magic Maker or whatever it's called.
And then just a big story just announced this morning, broke at about 8 o'clock Pacific this morning, is a new restaurant is coming to Disneyland as the makeover of the east side of Disneyland continues to be taken over by Tiana. Tiana's Palace is going to replace longtime Disney restaurant French Market. French Market's last day. The last day of French Market's operation will be February 16th. It will then close and begin the conversion to Tiana's Palace. They did not say what type of restaurant. Is it going to remain quick service, or are they going to switch over to table service? Since they didn't say, my hunch is it's going to remain. They did say the menu would include a lot of things you've come to love at French Market, plus some new Tiana favorites. The Mint Julep Bar will also be closing for construction, but they have said it will reopen and will again offer mint juleps and beignets. So this is pretty exciting news. Tiana's shop already opened over on the other side of New Orleans Square. And then this year we will get Tiana's Palace, and next year we will get Tiana's Bayou Adventure.
I think it'd be interesting to look at the IP in the parks, adjust box office gross for inflation, and figure out like the percentage of representation in the parks, because this has to be now coming into 2024 one of the most represented $100 million, squeaked out $100 million films.
I think you said a key word there. If you rewind what you said as to why this is, but I'm going to leave it at that. Because I probably shouldn't.
I think. I mean, I'm not saying that I like that. I love that movie, and I think that all of these. Let me say this integration makes perfect sense. Like having a restaurant in a movie, and then bringing that movie to life in a place that's already New Orleans themed, makes perfect sense. So I'm not knocking the fact that it only made 100 million. There are several reasons for that, but I do think it's kind of interesting as we, as the representation for that movie is growing, to remember that it wasn't just like. But I also think, with even more hindsight, a lot of the classic movies that are the backbone of Disneyland also weren't financially successful in their day. So I guess there's that as well.
And also, it's particularly. It lends itself particularly well to theme parks. I mean, it's based on Earth and relatively present day, which and she wanted to build a restaurant. Wow, that really fits in. Almost like some people might have accused me of putting that in just so they could monetize it. Like,
I kind of wish they called it like Tiana's Palace 2 or something, so that this is like another location. So it's not supposed to be like the one in the movie, since it's very different.
We talked about when I got to preview Tiana's Bayou Adventure at Imagineering, how it's going to be set not in Tiana's Palace, but in Tiana's Foods, a co-op she creates with the community to supply food. So I wonder, if down the road we'll see that this somehow melds in with that theme.
Oh, I'm sure that you'll see elements of that in the decor. Assuming that it is a quick service, if you go in, I imagine they'll have all sorts of like cans and jars and stuff that you'll see for Tiana's Foods. But that's just a total guess.
I assume, but that's a total guess.
Andy, can I ask your opinion on a merchandise item?
Yeah, sure.
This is going to debut tomorrow at 7 a.m. on Shop Disney. The Figment Fruity Fig Bar Munchling.
Yeah. So we talked about this, Kyle, earlier. I'm so confused. This is edible, right?
Did you watch he saw the TikTok. He's very confused.
We saw this in a foodie guide. It was high up there in a foodie guide. If it's in a foodie guide, it's like a chef. There's a rule chefs have. If it's on a plate, you need to be able to eat it. If it's in a foodie guide, it should be edible. So other than that, I have no problem with it. It's kind of cute.
I don't understand. Like, I mean, it's kind of cute, but it could have been cute without like forcing it to be food.
That's the whole munchling thing, right?
I know. I guess that goes to my point of I don't really get the munchlings.
They are adorable though, and then there's that one. I need that link. It's like my favorite TikTok recently or Instagram of. You know what? You guys talk. I'm gonna find it.
His favorite meaning that it's his favorite to hate. He thinks it's gross.
What else did we need to discuss this morning?
Oh my goodness.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so this is a little, it's not really up main alley, but Disney. So you might have seen that ABC. If you go to your ABC app, there's like unlocked channels, right? So like they had a 25 Days of Christmas channel, whatnot. Now they have a Super Nanny unlocked channel. You can watch as much Super Nanny as you want for free on ABC.com.
Phew.
Which I can't even remember the last time. When was I got to find out when Super Nanny was on television.
When's
All
the
right, well,
White swap one?
As much as I want, by the way, that's an easy one for them to fulfill. So make sure you watch this while you're looking for Super Nanny.
It was on. Oh, okay. So it was on ABC from 2005 to 2011. Then it came back on Lifetime in 2020. But it had 8 seasons.
That's like Grey's Anatomy just getting out of bed in the morning. That's nothing. All right, check this out. This if you love the concept of munchlings, you're gonna love this.
Cook. Disney munchlings. Bacon, sour cream, potato. Mix. Loaded baked potato Mickey Mouse. Chocolate, strawberry, dip, chocolate drizzle strawberry piglet, egg, avocado, bagel, mix, avocado breakfast bagel Mike, double recipe for Big Mike. Let's cook. Disney munchlings.
So, that's gross. And by the way, they should, instead of mix, it should have been whip, stir or something, just to take it. I expect that from Disney Social now. Let's see. Any other big news this morning we should make sure we discuss?
Benji's raising a finger.
Oh, Benji, what you got?
Give me 1 second.
All right. While you're taking that.
When you signal us, it makes us think you
No.
want to go to you.
Like okay, I got it here.
Okay, go for it.
It's breaking news to me. I apologize if it's not breaking news to anyone else. But WWE CEO Nick Khan met with Bob Iger and ESPN president Jimmy Pitaro on Monday to discuss a possible sale. I
think that's big news. So
I think it's big news. I think it's a thing you have to do. You have to have that conversation to see if it makes sense. I don't know if it ultimately will for Disney, even though they've been paid. Ever since rumors of WWE being sold, Disney's been seen as a target. There's lots of surprising history between the two companies. The WWE app, or what their streaming platform, was powered by BAMTech, which Disney owns 100% of now. And there's also been talk for several years that Disney needs to appeal more to boys, and so you have that with the WWE. But given the challenges that Disney is facing right now and with their balance sheet, I'm not sure that it makes. I think it's going to be hard to swallow, especially given the issues surrounding the WWE. But outside of the ones that you normally have with WWE, but there's particular issues with the way things are going right now. So I would say it would be difficult for Disney to pull this off if it's something they were even interested in. But yes, I think the fact that they met is definitely interesting.
For sure.
Yeah, I think it would mean it's worth more to other people than it would probably be worth to Disney. You don't see, whereas I could see it at Universal Studios theme parks, like a WWE presence. I don't really necessarily see that at, Magic Kingdom.
Yeah, they let an encounter there.
Well, I mean, I guess, you never know if the price is right. Sure. It could definitely boost ESPN Plus specifically.
Right.
But you're right. I mean, I guess it depends. I will say Nelson Peltz is not anti-M&A. He's not saying you shouldn't buy things. It's just buying the right thing. So, it's probably the timing wasn't great for them, WWE. They could have probably sold it 3 years ago for much more than they can sell it for now. But
I thought you said anti-MMA, not anti-M&A.
That's funny, but yeah.
Mergers and acquisitions. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's fun. Turn to ESPN Plus. You can watch real fighting or fake fighting.
Or CNBC. There's fighting going on right there right now.
Has anyone? Should we call? Should we see if we can get should get Nelson on the line? See what he thinks about if he's done his due diligence on WWE.
We have reached out to.
We're hoping he hasn't done his due diligence on Laughing Place, and we can get him on.
Yeah.
So. We'll treat you very fairly, Mr. Peltz. I love everything you had to say. I don't know any Disney fan that doesn't. So would love to have you on here. If you're watching, you could be. You never know. Trying to think I wanted to do this damn Disney history while we have a little break here.
Oh, okay. So what's the Mandalorian doing? We got some Mandalorian news.
Where did you read that? The before you move on, the WWE meeting.
It's all over WWE media.
Okay.
There's WWE media.
It's like you have credit where it's due. But yeah, I saw it on like Wrestling Times, I believe, is where I saw the headline. Go ahead, Ben.
We got some breaking news about Mandalorian.
Okay.
Disney has put out a press release stating their plans for the Super Wild Card game on Monday night. Dang it, I copied the wrong thing. Which will be airing on ESPN, ABC, ESPN Plus, and then the Manning Cast on the Deuce. But during halftime, there'll be an exclusive new trailer for season 3 of The Mandalorian. So if hopefully that game is better than the game I had to watch for Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. But we will get a new trailer for Mando Monday. So we'll probably try to have Mike on Monday night if you watch LPTV to kind of.
Mando Monday.
It's just another Mando Monday.
And Lunar New Year happening around the world. Disney, of course, playing their part. So festive food celebrates Lunar New Year at Disney parks around the globe. Check out this article on LP. This is a Lunar New Year picture, not a festive foods picture. But as we go down, you can see some of the, oh my goodness, this is Disneyland?
No, it's not Disneyland. Let's play. So I guess I'm going to this conversation with Ben. So we're going to go through Hong Kong, Shanghai. Actually, you know what? Just scroll through and tell me when you think we reach the domestic parks.
Okay. I forget that captioning comes under, and so I'm like, Disneyland Resort. But no, this is Hong Kong, and oh my goodness.
We went through a lot of these menus yesterday. So.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Tell me when you think we reached domestic.
Okay. Oh man.
Look at that popcorn bucket real fast, though. It's really cute. The bottom right.
Yeah, that's adorable.
Yes. And of course, this is a lot of this merchandise features Stella Lou, who is a friend of Duffy, who happens to be a rabbit, and it's the year of the rabbit. And that is a cookie and cookie.
Shanghai, so cute.
Yep. Some really cool
stuff.
Yeah. Takes a turn, doesn't it?
What is this? What is this?
I think it's a pretzel with some sort of like pork in it.
So it's a Mickey shaped hot. So it's basically a flat hot dog. So this pretzel bun with hot dog pieces on top. Breaking news: this is not a sandwich. Wow, that is. So if you want to properly celebrate Lunar New Year with food, head on over to the Asian parks. I don't know how it tastes, but their food is really, really, really pretty. Oh man! And then the Festival of the Arts opens tomorrow. It has its own fun foods come in and talk about pretty foods. They do know how to do pretty foods over at Festival of the Arts, so that's really exciting. Got anything else, Ben, before I do some of our standard stuff?
Nope, go for it.
All right. This day in Disney history, 2004, Tokyo Disneyland begins its 20th anniversary celebration with the live show Remember the Dreams.
I don't remember dreams come true. Just remember the dreams. I try to remember my dream. Are you good at remembering your dreams? Or
my dreams are crushed by the weight of the human condition.
Only the scary ones. 2003, January 12, 2003, Hong Kong Disneyland broke ground on their way to creating the most picturesque Lunar New Year food. That was step number 1. Pretzel shaped like a weird bunny. You don't even think it looks like Mickey? Or it's the Year of the Rabbit. That makes sense. Of course, 2001, we've been talking about this with the L'Oreal Bakery closure, January 12th, the official opening date of Downtown Disney at the Disneyland Resort. Disneyland goes from
Disney.
The very moment Disneyland went from a park to a resort, the opening of Downtown Disney. Sad news, January 12th, 2000, Disney legend Mark Davis passed away. I think I got to see his last public appearance at the Once Upon a Classic Collector Society, and that was kind of a special moment. Benji, this one's for you. 1999, what major corporate initiative launched on this day, January 12th, 1999?
Corporate initiative. Why do we
The
love
term I
Weis?
use. No, not like that. I'm sorry. Major thing for the company as a whole. Not like a park celebration or something, but this will change the future of the Disney company from this day forward.
Go Network?
Yes. 1999, January 12th, the Go Network launched.
Still can be seen in a couple of places.
So if you ever wonder why so many Disney URLs are .go.com, because they can't.
Can we pull up what go.com looks like now?
I believe it's because they don't have the password to
The Parks blog has the Go in the URL still. Maybe that's why it's broken half the time I try to go to it.
Well, I will say they don't have an SSL. And it's Shop Disney. The Walt Disney Studios promoting Mulan, Jungle Cruise, Raya.
Maybe Mr. Pelt should point out this. Be like, they bought go.com.
I don't think this site has been touched since 2001. Maybe 2000.
Okay. On this day in 1990, huge Epcot news, the International Gateway opened, without which there may not be a Skyliner to Epcot. So very important. And finally, on this day in 1957, 2 years after Disneyland makes its debut, one of the more important people in the history of this company, certainly in the past few decades, John Lasseter was born, who has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. So there you have it, folks. This
You know
day
who the
in
guy,
history.
the guy behind
sorry.
him there, I can read his lips, actually. He's saying, wow.
check out who he got to come to his ceremony. He's got
Remy and
Patton,
Brad Paisley for some reason.
Owen Wilson,
John
Ratzenberger.
Ratzenberger.
People who I probably don't. So presumably this was when Cars
Family, maybe?
came out. Oh, would they get on the stage?
Could be Hollywood, though, not mayor, because Hollywood's not a city. But
And he got his star on November 1st, 2011. So what movie would that have been promoting? Thank you. That would be Cars 2011. Believe it or not, does not bring up movies.
I don't know who all those people are, but I know they all got a hug.
Cars 2. Oh, no, we're not going there. Cars 2 is the movie they were promoting that kind of tied in with the.
That makes sense.
Walk of
One of the
Fame there.
Pixar classics.
I like Cars 2 is the most underrated Pixar film. It's not great. It is underrated.
What's the most overrated, Doobie? In case Tony's watching.
Wall-E. And with a close second for Ratatouille. Pixar, Good Luck Charm, not so much for Lasseter, no, but Ratzenberger certainly is.
How's Skydance doing?
One of the highest grossing actors of all time, John Ratzenberger. Check it out.
He's got that return. Was it
Little known fact.
Back money.
Check it out. It is still going strong. Those $100 sell orders apparently did not kick in as much as those $100 buy orders because it is still going strong. Up 4% today. Is Nelson patting himself on the back or going, oh no, this is going to be harder than I thought?
I don't think it's hard because he's not trying to buy stock.
I know, but part of his thing is the company is underperforming. Well, it's performing right now.
Well, but
You could say they're performing because they're like, yay, Nelson.
I know. That's why I'm saying, does he see this as a positive or a negative?
Nelson comes across as the kind of guy that would see anything that reacts to him being positive.
Gotcha. And
Unless Idol is even going to ask the question.
This is why he's not going to come on our show.
Mr.
Among other
Pelt
reasons.
is sitting around watching LPTV.
Just checking out the Twitterville right now. See what's going on.
So
I
can
know-
I ask an ESPN question? I know we don't normally talk about ESPN, but I have an ESPN question for you.
That's so funny because I was just about to show an ESPN tweet.
So the big Monday Night Football game on the wild card, the game we're talking about with the Mandalorian, it's Cowboys at Tampa Bay. Who you got in this game?
Cowboys. I'm a Cowboy fan. They're going to crush Tampa Bay. You're going to have a boring game on Monday because of the Cowboys crushing Tampa Bay and sending Tom Brady to the old folks home he so richly deserves to live in.
No one should have won the NFC South.
I know. And the fact that Cowboys are going on the road to play this game, it's just not fair, even though the situation would reverse 2 years ago when they got a home game at 8-8. Still, it's just not fair.
Well, you know, the Bucs also got to play a home game for the Super Bowl, so some things are not fair. And but on the other hand, you'll have a homer doing the commentary.
But he's not a homer. No one's harder on Dallas than Troy Aikman. He's harsh. He's harsh. So wild card weekend on Monday, they are going to be in Tampa Bay from is Get Up there? No, First Take is there, NFL Live, and Monday Night Countdown. That's going to be a fun day on ESPN. A very fun day.
Do you? So you're going to watch on with the regular, or are you going to watch the Manning cast?
Oh man, I'm going to watch the regular until it gets out of reach one way or the other, and then I'll go to the Manning cast for fun. But I work out every Monday and look forward to it, and I miss it for almost nothing. I am going to stay home and watch this football game. It's probably Dallas's last game of the year, if I'm honest with myself. So it's Fire Clip off his rocker here. No offense to anyone reading our page. Disney stock has to be in the $200 minimum. It's $100. It's down. Disney stock is not in good shape.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be anything. What's the? I don't know what if you feel that it should be $200, and you know that's your opinion. But
would a well-run company with all of these assets be in $200?
Well, the dollar figure is irrelevant because you got to look at market cap. It's
have twice the market cap it has now.
Yeah, well, I mean, it did, right? And now it doesn't. And the question is why? I mean, it's not based off of the numbers; it's based off of Wall Street's perception. And why is Disney valued less by the multiple of earnings? Why is Disney valued less than Netflix? Disney's a bigger company, but why does Disney get less multiple of earnings than Netflix does? I don't have the answer. That's just a perception thing amongst the people who buy significant numbers of shares.
Yeah, you'd think that a more diversified company with different levers, as they like to say, of making money would be more largely valuable than a company like Netflix, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, just in one game.
Well, especially since that's the part of the business that Disney's getting dinged for, right? Mm-hmm. Like, why is Netflix not getting dinged for streaming not being a sustainable business, but Disney isn't? I mean, or whatever, reverse it.
So I just ran across this article. You guys may have talked about this earlier, but Hollywood Reporter has an article today, I believe. No, it's actually from a week ago, so my mistake. Did we talk about this at all, though? The how Disney made it to its 100th year. Sharing the wrong tab, sorry. How Disney made it to its 100th year. It
didn't stop.
It's interesting. The reason it came to my attention is the tweet for this was retweeted by Disney Parks. And usually it's an official site retweets something. There's some kind of exclusive or something going on.
There's not, but I think that's the interesting. It's odd that they're. I don't. Do you remember when Save Disney and suddenly, the marketing, the PR people at Disney got very much more aggressive and, and things things. You can't help but wonder if they're told like, okay, let's find positive things because the story's not new. I read the story.
Yeah, it came out on January 6th, and it was just retweeted by Disney Parks. So you're saying the fact that this was just retweeted by Disney Parks actually goes back to Nelson Peltz.
I don't know. I can't say that, but you must have to wonder, like, did they? I mean, either they are not reading the Hollywood Reporter consistently, or like, I don't get it. Like, I don't know why suddenly this, especially when you just announced news that now you're sort of, overshadowing.
That's really interesting.
What Disney Parks just TikToked. Oh, no.
They just TikToked.
What do you call it? Tiana? Is it typed? What is? I know it's tweet.
It should be ticked or second.
How about they posted?
So I use TweetDeck to make sure I'm on top of everything happening. You know, I got my Diz Twitter list, I got my Disney official list. I look for any Disney tweets that have a bunch of favorites. Is there a TweetDeck equivalent, but that also brings in TikToks and Instagram so I can see it all on one screen?
It does exist. You just have to build it.
It takes people to make that dream a reality.
Oh, you're so funny, Kyle. Oh, I wanted to show this one more time because this is the top story of the day as of about a week ago. And that is Ducks Day at Disneyland Resort.
What's going on? Good morning. We're here at Anaheim Ducks Day here at Disney, California.
I have a
What
question
kind of
for you,
Mickey
Ben.
Mouse organization would call their team the Ducks?
I have a question for you, Ben, as a former guest control cast member, someone working in the trenches in the park. Does it bother you to see him running?
He's not running. The cameraman is.
Not really. I mean, there's running and then there's running and then there's running, right? Like a little jog, whatever. It's the people that are like jumping over people. One thing I don't want to get lost in the shuffle is, it's not Disney, but we have Jeremiah covered the opening of the Pirate Voyage over at Legoland, and we have we got the full video up, so I want to make sure people see that too. I'm sure it's going to be in the rotation, but that would have been the top story, but now it's like the top 15 story.
Yeah, Jeremiah. So what is this attraction called exactly? Pirates River Quest, which we talked to him live yesterday. We happened to be talking to him live just as the news broke about Universal building a park in Texas, which was really fun to see Luke lean over and say, "Have you seen this, Jeremiah?" while we're talking to him.
Watch out, me arties, yo ho.
So this is a new attraction in Legoland, Florida. According to Jeremiah, it's kind of a leisurely boat ride, about 20 minutes long, and exactly my kind of ride. 20-minute long boat ride is exactly how I like to live my life. So as Ben said, that's full video on Laughing Place right now. This is a quick snippet of it. Go check that out, please. Someone points out, I didn't think of this. It is Tiana's Palace that is opening at New Orleans Square, French Market, but it is Tiana's place on the Disney Wonder. So that is really, really interesting to me. What else, Kyle? I know Ben is chasing down something right now. We're going to try to bring to in just a minute, but until he does, checking out the Diz Twitter.
Yeah, I'm going through all my sites. It's kind of gross how many tabs I have open at any given time and how half of them are just Disney Instagram accounts.
Remember, if you join our Disney Patreon, you can see all of our screens while we're doing the show live someday, but we don't have that yet. But I do think I would watch, I watch a thing called Agenda TV where he covers breaking news live, and I would pay extra to be able to see how he works, see his screens while he's doing the show. He does what we're doing now for only breaking news all by himself. I don't know how he does it. Although there is lots of downtime.
Yes. Well, while we're preparing for our next story, I will say in addition to this marathon stream, we'll be back throughout the day, presumably. We have a few things we're running down, and we'll hopefully be able to bring to you later today. So keep an eye on this space. Go to LPTV, laughingplace.com/TV, or on our YouTube channel, so you don't miss any of that. And then, yeah, that's an adorable photo. You're going to steal Benji's attention from whatever he's doing if you put something like this on.
I know. Thankfully, Benji probably is not looking at the screen because 2 minutes for roughing at Anaheim Ducks Day. I think this is adorable.
Top-notch wordplay.
That's something you know something about, Kyle?
Yeah, well, I was about to tell you a story about going to a hockey game and misunderstanding a call, but it's not quite appropriate. So I'll have to share that with you off the air.
Yeah, but again, Patreon.
It involves unsportsmanlike misconduct. and you'll never guess what I thought they said. So,
anything else going on while we wait for you guys? I know there's a few people out there watching us. So what do you guys think of this? Are you guys completely skeptical? Did the flip deck get you guys excited?
I want to know how many people are shareholders.
And I'm still amazed at how.
I think I have like probably a dozen shares at most. Most of them are in my retirement account, and I do have a few like on. So in my real line of work, when I'm not doing 3-hour Disney streams, I write about personal finance. And so for a lot of those, I end up opening brokerage accounts and reviewing them. So I have several like little fractions of shares of Disney, plus a couple of whole ones. So I do have a few shares. So I get several different proxy notifications, and I get to vote and have my say. So I'll be keeping an eye on my inbox. But yeah, I'm curious how many people own. They might own shares and not know it because of the way, like if you're purchasing into if you're purchasing an index fund, or if you're purchasing into a mutual fund, you might already have shares of Disney. But I wonder how many people own shares of Disney outright. Gio, not a shareholder. Now we know.
Oh wow, Gio, that's surprising. Just to be able to go to the meetings, I would think you'd be a shareholder.
They don't check your credentials. Hey, open your Robinhood app.
I'm still amazed that this isn't a bigger deal in Diz Twitter. This is a huge deal in financial Twitter, but it's not a huge deal in Diz Twitter, as far as I can tell.
Well, I think I think that Diz Twitter kind of keeps it at an arm's length. They'll talk about the things that they like. I'm sure that the quote from last night is something that might go around, but as far as the knowing all the intricacies of what this is and what this means, I think is harder. And it's hard for me. Like, that's why, like, when I went on the air with Ben yesterday, the story was much different than I thought it was, because I'm not well versed enough, whereas he's like, oh my gosh, this is huge news, but not for the reason that I thought. So, not every Disney fan is on the level of Ben, who happens to also work in finance.
But just given the documents that he put out and the way he pandered so much to Disney fans, very smart move. I don't know
about so much. Isn't it really just that one slide? Aside from
because he talks about how maybe that's the same slide, but it was 2 points: the nickel and diming, which is a great term to use, even if he followed it with cast member, but that's a great term to use with Disney fans, and the parks propping up the rest of the company. I mean, the most vocal Disney fans are the park fans, and that is, both of those are just totally.
That's still probably the same slide.
But yeah, it only takes one line to get people. Evil Queen, the Equalizer, is both a cast member and a shareholder. So, Gio,
my wife's regrets when she worked for the company is not taking the stock option.
You should go to a shareholder meeting in person. It is an experience. I know the level of Disney fan you are. Every huge Disney fan, go to a shareholder meeting once. It's a special experience, assuming they go back to having them in person. Yeah, you ready, Ben?
He doesn't know.
Hey,
welcome.
Hey, how you guys on? I didn't want to interject, but we got some reporting from CNBC that Nelson Peltz is claiming that he was invited to be an advisor, observer to the Disney board, and David Faber from CNBC is saying that's not the case. That Disney's saying they didn't do that. So this is, you're not supposed to lie on proxy statements. So we'll see how.
Who's the Disney person who says no?
It's reporting, so we don't know who.
Okay.
Now a proxy statement from Disney will come out at some point and give their side. I will say the analysts on CNBC seem like they're leading to agreeing with Mr. Peltz. So this is not going to be an easy fight either way for either of the perspectives on this issue.
It's a little better here. Okay. Very interesting. Wow. Yeah. So while you were gone, Ben, I showed this and just wanted to make sure you saw it, because no one will appreciate it more than you.
I did see it. That's adorable.
The roughing.
Did you see the picture of Alex yesterday?
I did. Well, which one? I saw a picture of Alex. Was he with the dog?
Yeah.
I didn't see the dog.
Dog. It's Betty from Will Trent, played by Belle.
I was mesmerized by the color of the shirt and thinking I really want that shirt, and I never got to the dog, so I'm sorry.
That's the opposite of.
Pixar tweeted out this: "Say cheese, Commander. Catch the larger-than-life Buzz Lightyear in Disney's Hollywood Studios. Kind of cute."
I can fly.
Wow, this fight is heating up. He said, you went through his timeline earlier, which, if you have time, I know you're getting busy, but it's worth going through again if you have time. But you went through the timeline, and he specifically mentioned how he was invited to be an advisor on the board, and apparently Disney was watching that because, according to CNBC, sources are saying he was not. If he gets on the board, can you imagine being in those meetings?
No, I mean this is weird, right? And unfortunately, because it's right, like this is clear that this is not just about substance. This is about personality, because they both agree on paper on what needs to happen. So you could look at one side, Bob Iger. You could look at Bob Iger and go like, why don't you? If you all agree, why don't you bring him on? And then you can look at Mr. Peltz's side and say, if they're doing what you want, why do you need to be on the board? And
well, if all the current advisors, if they all get reelected, and then Nelson gets added, then they could broadcast the board meetings and call it 12 Angry Men and Women.
Yeah, well, it's just it's unfortunate it came here. I mean, in a mess of Bob Iger's own making. So,
you just got a good question here. Does Nelson have any board members possibly on his side?
Possibly, but not obviously enough. Because they didn't invite him. We don't know how they voted. They voted on this, right? And they voted no. I think it's pretty clear. I think from the reporting we saw around Bob Chapek, Mary Barra, CEO GM, and Mark Parker, who will be the chairman of the board at Disney and executive chairman at Nike, are pretty, I would say, are probably the strongest board members they have. And, were instrumental in sort of wanting to get Chapek on. I don't know, we won't know until we know, right? Or, and there's still there's still a possibility they'll add him. They'll read the tea leaves and say, not worth the proxy fight, not worth the money. Come on.
Wow. Can you imagine?
Can they appoint? So at this point, could they add him before the shareholder meeting, and then would he still be voted on? And could he possibly not be voted if they could drop him?
No, he would still be voted on, just like with every other director. But
right. So I'm saying,
they would support his nomination, which would make it,
So that's what adding him means. If they decide, this isn't worth the fight, we're going to add him. What that means is just saying endorsing the nomination, so he gets on board.
Then it wouldn't matter, right? You wouldn't have to have spend the money to.
Do you think that's how it would work? I mean, there's only so many huge investors that they would read the tea leaves and basically, is there any chance that if this goes to proxy vote and he wins, or would Disney know that's about to happen and then make it a smoother transition instead?
I mean, you don't necessarily know. Because people can change their vote to the last minute. So I don't know. They did it. When he did this at Procter & Gamble, it came down to the wire.
Really?
They even had to revote. Recount. So
were there people in the audience yelling vote at that one?
Wasn't there, as much as I love my Clorox, or not Clorox, but
So Restore the Magic is the website. They have longtime Disney fans will remember back in the late 90s. What year was it then? Save Disney.
Save Disney was 2000, 2003,
2003. That there was a Save Disney campaign launched mostly by Roy E. Disney, the nephew of Walt Disney, in conjunction with Stanley Gold and Shamrock Holdings, I believe is the company. And, kind of the same thing. Michael Eisner is running this company, and we want to save it. And they launched SaveDisney.com. And their goal was to oust Michael Eisner and bring in someone else. And Michael Eisner ultimately did step aside and Bob Iger replaced him, but that kind of the closest analog to what's going on right now. And obviously, that was different being the Disney family member was a part of it there, not just an investor, but a Disney family member that gives it a different kind of weight. And I think a lot of people thought the company was really, really going in the wrong direction creatively as Eisner got into his later years, whereas people right now are kind of excited that Bob Iger's back. So it's not the same, but it's the closest we can think of in Disney's history.
It's a similar situation, but this time it was, at that point it was clear which side Disney fans were on, and I don't know that. I think the jury's out on this one.
Yeah.
I have a somewhat related question. Two-parter, like during an earnings call. Do directors get paid, and if so, do we know how much each director makes?
I mean, it's public. They do get paid. I'd have to find it. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Is it a nominal fee, or is it? I mean, nominal to?
Well, I mean, nominal to me is different than nominal to
exactly.
I've seen it before. It's not nominal to them. I'm sorry, it's not nominal to us. It is not like, scale for appearing on Johnny Carson. But I'm sure when you're a 100 millionaire, it's not, the same thing.
I'm getting live reaction from Gen Z as my sister-in-law just sent me the Instagram post with Tiana's palace and says screaming and crying. So that's what the kids are.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
That's I think it's good. I don't even know if she's been to Disneyland.
She's sad over the departure of the French market. So I just found this. Oh, let me get some credit here. I just found this on eBay. So someone is selling this on eBay. I do not recall this, but this is a SaveDisney.com sticker. This was actually given out to people outside the shareholders meeting, and it actually says along the bottom, "Restore the magic." So, interesting.
Should they hand out red balloons out front of the D23 Expo?
99 of them, if I recall. Good question. I wonder what Abigail is thinking on this situation. I feel like she would come in and just rip Iger without even thinking.
She's too busy closing her studio and firing all those people.
Nelson Peltz is even more financially motivated, but
so they get. So you asked me about board of directors compensation. They receive $115,000.
Jeez.
And $10,000 for every committee. So I mean, I hate to scoff at it, but
it's nominal to them.
Yeah, it's nominal to them.
Do they get stock?
They get a stock unit grant with a value of about $60,000 to $240,000 per year, based on the average of the high and low trading prices of the common stock. So yes, they do get stock, which is what you want, right? You want your board to own stock.
Well, no, of course. So their total compensation is actually more like $300,000. It sounds like, if you include the stock. If I did my math
if the stock is valued well,
right? It kind of depends on what happens there.
Over at Disneyland Paris, ED92 Magic, a great Disneyland Paris Twitter follow. Lightning McQueen is out in the rain at Walt Disney Studios. Don't know enough about Paris to know if that's a big deal, but it's a really cool picture, so I shared it. 115,000 plus mileage allowance. Yes, 22 cents a mile. So they're doing well.
Do they get mileage on Zoom calls? Blue Jeans. Sorry, I used my correct Disney nomenclature.
So we don't. It doesn't look like we have any big news coming out now. It's going to come. Who knows when it's going to come? And when it comes, we'll come in. But I've gone through our normal morning news report stuff. We've done a couple of resets on the Nelson Peltz. I'm sure we'll be on, even if no news comes up later. We're going to go live this afternoon just to recap everything again for anyone that missed it. So it seemed like a good time to maybe shut things down and let normal programming resume.
Yeah.
Do you still plan on doing Marvel Time at 10?
Nope.
Okay. So
he was so optimistic last night.
That was before I saw Nelson Peltz on CNBC. I mean, I don't have time to read the comics.
Did you already tell Mac?
No, Mac's not. Well, no.
Well, they're not the place. Not the place. We will be live later today with many things, including the latest on this situation. So please make sure you stay tuned to lastplace.com/TV. If you're watching us on our direct YouTube streams, just make sure you like, subscribe, ring the bell so you get notified when we do. There will be more news on this. There will be more other Disney news and theme park news that we're covering today. So please stay tuned to Laughing Place as we live out our dream of covering breaking news as it happens. Bye.